All right, so we are live. Uh, Hello, and a very warm welcome to our brilliant speakers and everyone who's tuning into this live stream from all over the world. My name is Krisada, and I'll be your MC for today. First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend Charisma Movement's first ever virtual health forum, No Holdbacks. I would also like to thank all of our event partners and participating organizations in making this event one for the books. If at any point you require assistance or would like to ask a question, our on-ground team is on standby. Today, we will be covering invisible illnesses and sexual and women's health. Now, all of you must be very excited. So wait no further as I present to you our first keynote speaker kicking off day 2 for No Holdbacks, Miss Sarah Nataya. Just a little short bio before we move on to her keynote speech. Miss Sarah is the founder and CEO of MBits Digital. Miss Sarah is a strong purveyor of women's empowerment and believes in leading objectively. If leading involves focusing on gender, race, age, or having the mindset to prove that as a woman you are above all due to the lack of representation, then it creates a bubble of fear that people would not want to deal with, as it then blurs the line of being objective. Leading objectively towards achieving a goal without these negative inkling feelings will naturally gain respect, as the more a leader is objective, conscious or subconsciously, she will work cooperatively and collectively, which will in turn create more willingness for people to work for or with her. Empowering women to overcome and succumb to social pressure is crucial for the future of more women leaders, and through content, I believe we can inspire more women to grow to become leaders within their own respective industries. These are the very inspiring words of our keynote speaker for today, Miss Sarah Nataya, and I definitely resonate with her message. Without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Miss Sarah. Miss Sarah, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Chris. I must say, I know those are my words, but it really sounded so much better when you were saying it. Very, very passionate. I don't know whether I can top that today, but yeah, thank you so much, Chris, for that introduction. Thank you, Charisma Movement, for inviting me to be part of this event. I'm very glad that I can be part of this whole movement that you're very passionate about helping women or advocating women empowerment or women's rights or even mental health issues or mental illness, health illness. Um, so before I go into the whole topic today, I've got to start a little bit about myself. Well, I was just talking to Chris just now, and I wanted to resonate a little bit more with him, but unfortunately, our age gap is so huge. And when he told me he's 18, I said, "Oh wow, that was I can't even remember what I was doing when I was 18 years old." So today's session for me, I'm not going to share any notes, any PowerPoints. I think for once, I'd like all of you to just listen. That's something I think is lacking in this generation because of all the technology. I would know that especially because I'm in the telco and the broadcasting industry, and maybe I could start like right there. If you want to know a little bit about me, basically, I'm 31. I just turned 31. I think I would consider myself as the youngest woman entrepreneur within the telecommunications and broadcasting industry. My company, Mbits Digital, I founded it in 2016 when I was 26. Why I'm a telco and a broadcasting company? Because my company is a fully licensed telecommunications and broadcasting company by the Ministry of Communications of Malaysia. And actually, in 2016, when I received the licensing, I didn't know that it was a very difficult thing to achieve, in which, I thought that going into the telco and the broadcasting industry wouldn't be as difficult. But when I received the licensing, and then as I go along, people are pretty amazed that you could get all the licensing into one company. So, as a woman entrepreneur, it has been a very, very challenging journey. But before I go into my work journey, how did I aspire or inspire to be a woman entrepreneur is because I am actually the only child, daughter, only girl in the family. My mom's a single parent, and my mom's always been the pillar for me. And I've seen a struggle of a woman, especially in a position where you have children and you have to work very hard to bring up your children. And my mom always say, bringing up a daughter as opposed to bringing up boys, it's so much easier for boys because then you don't have to go into the worry about pregnancy, right, and all the typical women's issues. And so, having looked at my mom growing up, then I told myself, oh, I think a woman independence is very, very important. And so that's why I study very hard. At 16, 17, I already did my A levels. I did my O levels in when everyone was taking Form 3, I was doing my O levels. And while everyone was taking SPM, I was doing my A levels. And then I immediately applied to Oxford and then I left. And my background actually has nothing to do with telecommunications and broadcasting. I studied English history with the sole purpose of learning about the developments of a country that we are a Commonwealth country as Malaysia, and we're pretty much 100 years behind. I wouldn't say we are still 100 years behind, but because given the history that the UK has, we are still very behind in so many aspects of society, right? Especially society, and we're also a different culture. Although we're a Commonwealth, we're also Asian, and we're multicultural and multilingual in Malaysia, which makes things even more complicated, right? So that's why I took English history. Then after taking English history, I really wanted to join the United Nations. So my whole vision when I was younger, at Chris's age at 18, I told myself, oh, I want to be in the United Nations. I want to do government politics on a global level. I want to change the world because I think as an Asian, as a young woman, I think I could really achieve what I had in mind at the time. Then come after graduating, and then I came back, and then I was in politics for 6 years, attached to a politician, a woman politician who I won't mention, but she is a great advocate for women's empowerment as well, and women's issues. And through my experience, I learned a lot about the difference of society. And eventually, after I left, because I was actually, I came to a stage where I was a private secretary of a minister in the prime minister's office, and I was only like 25. Yeah, most of the private secretaries in Malaysia are 40 and above, and also very rarely private secretaries are women. So administrative are usually women. Somehow or other, that is the mindset where women can do administrative work, but probably not, administrative work, but nothing beyond that. But I think after experiencing different industries, because I was in politics and then I left and then I started doing telecoms and broadcasting, then I realized that the diversity of the two, politics is a totally different world, telecoms and broadcasting is a totally different world, totally different industry, but they're very relative. Um, and because of that, I've also learned about how women have progressed to where they are today. So I think if you look at women's progression, like in the history of women suffragettes, I think you wouldn't even imagine that women could be where they are right now because we couldn't even vote before, and now we could vote. And then you can see women who are going into businesses. And of course, a lot of people ask me whether in the telecommunication and broadcasting industry, do you have a lot of women? And my answer would be no, not many who are founders and owners of um, organizations in the telecom and broadcasting industry. But there are a lot of women participation. Yeah. And I think it has increased severely the past few years. Women are obviously more objective. I'm not saying all this to cannibalize men. Yeah, I'm saying this because based on my experience, I can see that women now are, more within political industry or even the telco and broadcasting industry because we're a little bit more objective in that sense. So you can see prime ministers of different countries now. You have Germany, Angela Merkel, who's a woman. You've got Iceland, you've got New Zealand. So you can see that people are now adapting to that change of women being at home, and now women running a country, and now women running a company. So, talking about running a company, again, going back to communications, um, mental health. A lot of people always talk about mental health, but the question here is what causes mental health, right? And really, because I see the progression when I was in politics, we actually use social media platforms to get our messages across. And if you see in history, every type of content, I always highlight this in every talk that I go to, that content is very important. And a content produces integrity, should have integrity, I mean, when they produce a content, because the mindset or the minds of the people is a very fragile place. Yeah, it really depends on how you mold your own mindset, and most of the times you don't realize, but you're not molding your own mindset. Is what you see and what you read, but mostly really now it's very visually effective. And in communications, when I was in politics, I actually experimented by running a campaign using social media platforms like Instagram at that time and Facebook. It was very successful because at that time it was just a growth. We're talking about 2013, 2014. It was just starting up. And then suddenly you can see the surge of users, and everybody then started going to social media. And then social media has now become a place that is so toxic. And why do I say toxic? Is because it's a content platform generated by multiple users. And then, well, it started out as a platform where people get affirmation, right, and acceptance. And it's a very superficial platform where everybody would start posting their photos, right, and giving other people a very superficial perspective of an individual. And then after that, it became a place for people to start expressing themselves. And unfortunately, for those who has a little bit more insecurity issues, right, and they don't have an outlet to express themselves, then they use social media to express themselves, which becomes a huge issue because they would think that social media could be a place to express, but then it turns out that you get more backlashes and you get depressed. So you're already suffering from an issue where you're trying to express yourself. You don't have an outlet to express yourself. And then you use social media to express yourself. And then suddenly you realize, oh no, I'm getting comments from people who are hiding behind a shield, hiding behind a fake email or a fake account. And by all means, it could be people around you that you already know and they're just using an account to just bash you online, and you wouldn't even know it. So I think to address this issue really from the telecoms and broadcasting industry, I keep highlighting this to the Ministry of Communications that there should be some form of filtering from the government. If you look at China, that's a little bit more extreme, of course. But we should have that because the society as Asians, we're a very different society than the Americans. If you look at the platform that we're all using, whether it's StreamYard, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, they're all American based platforms. And we have no control over the platforms. Yeah. And what happens is the platform was built for a society like them, in which if you look into history, the society in the US really focuses on individual rights. So individual rights is something that you can see is being very heavily advocated in the US because I think in terms of, don't talk about gender issues, but racial issues is also a very huge thing. A lot of people in Malaysia say, oh, we're also very racist and things like that. But if you have been physically to America and if you see and met the people there, you can really feel the difference between the racism in Malaysia or racial biases in Malaysia and like real racism in America. So that's why when you see society is different, then you come back to Asia, and then what happens is you're so brought in to all the content that you see on all these platforms, right? Whether it's YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, you can see that they're all very American-based culture context, right? That's how the algorithm is. And what happens? We would think that as Asians we could do the exact same thing like them, but it's very different because Our society is different and entirely different. Sorry, completely different because we are taught based on our culture, based on our religion, that we have to respect the elderlies, right? For example, and then we don't really express ourselves as much, right? As opposed to in the US, they are given the right, if the teacher is teaching them something wrong, the students can say something and address to the teacher that they're teaching something wrong. But in Malaysia, you can't do that, right? Because culturally, it's not inhabited by us here. So then they start learning to be expressive because of the content that you keep seeing on social media. And then they apply it in their everyday life, and then they get backlashed, and then they get depressed. When they get depressed because they say, "Oh, I can't express myself," I take it to social media, and then, as I mentioned, the whole bubble will just explode. So, what do we do about this? This is where really it's not anything that you and I can do, but something that probably I can do a little bit more because I'm trying to create as well a totally different digital platform that would allow people to express themselves without actually being backlashed. I think if you look at big brands, big brands like Lush, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lush, the brand that created bath bombs. It's from the UK. They have also decided to remove themselves from social media because they realize that the environment is very toxic. Can we do anything about it? We can't because we're not Meta. We can't. We are not Mark Zuckerberg. We can't change that. But what I always say, I'm also a content producer. If we can't beat them, join them. So our jobs really is to create content in a more positive nature. And this is also something that I'm facing a huge problem with in Malaysia within the communications industry. You can see a lot of fake news. You can't really tell what news is real and what news is not. And then when you try to express on the matter, then you realize after an hour or after a day that it's fake news. And there's no way to recuperate from that because you've already started expressing yourself. And really, I think when it comes to communications in Malaysia, um, we're trying our very best as a telco and a broadcaster to change that. I think a lot of the broadcasting industry is also to change the mindset of the people and especially the masses by creating more content in a positive nature. So I had a question posed to me once. Do you think that the broadcasting industry should have more women because the women are now somehow because the industry is dominated by men and then the women are somehow objectified because that's the perspective of how the men are building within the broadcasting industry. I think I just want to touch base on that generally. There are women in the broadcasting industry from the talent perspective and the content creating perspective. But the problem is somehow or rather globally, women are seen to be beautiful creatures that should be objectified, right? That's something that you can't avoid from the broadcasting industry. But if you look at what has happened now, I think you can see a lot of women directors that are trying to create different types of content on women. And I mean, we have directors like Irma Fatima, we have Shuhaini Baba, or you even have, from the international perspective, Angelina Jolie. They're all trying to come out and create more content. So I think what I'm trying to say here is we can never change social media platforms because the platforms doesn't belong to us. And it's something unavoidable because technology will always develop, and we're going to keep trying. Like from YouTube, you've got a whole 1 hour kind of content, and then you've got Twitter that are all just words format, and then you've got Instagram, and you've got Facebook that's all video format content. So it's or TikTok now, right? You've got 15 seconds, and that's the attention span of the people now, reducing to like 15 seconds or even 3 seconds to be captured into a content. But the point here is all these content platforms will be there. So how do we address the mental health issue is really, like a charisma movement, like your organization, like you should create more contents to advocate that platforms will never change, but the contents that you create can help address these issues, right? For example, if news portals in Malaysia could be a little bit more positive, it would be great, right? Because most of the news portals now, everything is negative. And entertainment news is pretty much political news today. That's how undefinitive it is now in terms of politics, entertainment, right? Communication, and social media and mental health is so relative because, like I said, end of the day, you have to address it by creating more positive contents, and the mindset as well has to change. And of course, touching base on women and how women are affected in their thinking is because most women I see has the biggest issue that they face is insecurity. So that's the biggest difference I must say from my own perspective. I may be wrong, maybe right, right to you, but from my own perspective, the great difference between men and women is the fact that women have more insecurities than men. For example, I noticed for a woman, when they make a decision, we may have a little bit more emotions to something. And we overthink things sometimes. Like, how do we, what I'm saying, is this right? Is my hair okay today? Am I dressed okay today? So all this is something that would affect them. As opposed to men, they don't really think about these things, right? For them, they don't really have emotional attachments to the decisions that we make, right? So based on that statement that I just made, right, which people would probably have questions for me after this, is I find it very difficult myself as an entrepreneur because I realized I'm young, right? I'm still in the young category within the entrepreneur world. And making decisions for me was very, very challenging, especially when I was in my 20s, because I do have the emotional attachment. Do I spend this money? Do I spend? I don't spend this money. Do I produce this content? I don't produce content. This content. Would people like my content? There's so many questions that I have that I don't. It's very hard for me to make the decision. And then, of course, after making it, then I'll probably have questions like, oh, do I regret making this decision? If I make another choice, would it be different? So all these little things is something that I find as a woman entrepreneur that I face. But again, I think it's something that's very easy to overcome, right? And the only thing that's very challenging in the entrepreneurial world is the perspective of the men of women. They have a prejudiced mindset on women that, as I mentioned, my quote, Chris, that you read from the Women's Empowerment Principle, right? That is true. Women somehow or other, or men look at women when we are always very demanding people. We are very uncompromising people. We're, um, not as adaptable as they want us to be. But really, that is not the case for all women, right? And really, I do stand by my quote that women should really be a little bit more compromising, a little bit more patient. That's something that I also learned that women have, lack of patience sometimes, right? And that also will change or affect the decision making process. But definitely, respect is something that I've learned as a woman entrepreneur is very important. So you don't look at the men with prejudice, right? If you're looking at the men with prejudice, how the men are looking at you with prejudice, then it makes you no better. You look at the men, you're being disrespectful to me because I'm a woman entrepreneur. So if you have that mindset, then that would be a little bit more challenging. But in my organization, I have probably all my HOD are all men, and they're all 50 and above. And we do have women, and most of them are execution level. But of course, dealing with HOD who are men are also very challenging because of, as I said, the prejudice. But if I also have a prejudice to say, oh, I'm a woman, it's going to be very difficult for me to get the message across, and because they're not going to take me seriously because I'm a woman, and although they're my HODs, then that would be also turmoil within the organization. So I think in conclusion, Chris, what I'm saying here is to address women's issues first, because I've got two things here, right? One is mental health, and one is about women. But again, I'm saying it's relative because one, I think women should really stand up and address and express themselves more. We shouldn't live in a society where our women ministry said something like, talk to your husband with a Doraemon voice. That shouldn't exist in this generation at all. And on top of that, I think be brave. There's really nothing to be insecure about. If you overthink things, then naturally you would. But I think the mindset has to change first, especially for our Asian women. I know that each of our culture, each of our race would have certain dogmatic guidelines of how a woman should behave, right? But I think in this century, we should progress from what in history we've progressed to an extent where we have women prime ministers in the world and women entrepreneurs. Now it's the next step to really bring us out of the whole, um, behave in a certain manner era and try to really speak out more. When you do that, then definitely you will lessen your insecurity issues because you don't think about, don't overthink too much about what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're wearing, right? Loving yourself is probably always very, very much important. And that would address the mental health issues because then if you're not afraid to express yourself, then really I think that would be a starting point for you. And not using social media platforms is definitely my opinion in terms of expressing your point of views, right? I think what you should do is really come up with a blog, come up with a forum, discuss about the matter would be so much better than taking it into social media platforms because once you do that, that whole bubble that I mentioned will burst and then you go into another phase, which is the worst phase of depression. And this is something that I see increasingly in Malaysia because the expectation in your mind is I want to be as expressive as the Americans or the foreign people that I see on all the social media platforms. And then suddenly reality hits you in Malaysia where we are trying to adapt ourselves to that kind of societal environment. But until then, I think there must be another alternative, get a forum, join charisma movement, call them for assistance, right? That would be a better option. Yeah. That's 27 minutes, Chris. I think that's as much as I have, but I'd rather take more questions if there are any questions already.
Yeah, that was really great. I can definitely agree with what you said about social media initially being something that was created for good, but has somehow turned into something that can be very very toxic. And like that's why that's why I've also seen like like some celebrities they take a break from social media once in a while because it can really get toxic and get into the heads of people. It can really like drive someone to do things which they never thought would have been possible. I can definitely agree with what you said about social media being toxic and everything. um yeah, that was
But
really
it
really
is
great.
dangerous, Chris, because if you
Mhm.
look at so I just had another session, and they were asking me about whether this is the new norm. Is this the environment for us forever? But again, you look in history, you've got cholera, you've got H1N1, you've got SARS. We will survive this. The post-pandemic, everything will go back to normal. But the thing that would not be normal is the fact that the platforms that you consume content will be different because now everyone doesn't really watch TV anymore. They're all using their phones or desktops or laptops to watch content, right? That would be different. But at the same time, why I would say this particular pandemic is so it's such a huge thing is because now we have social media that's spreading all types of news, right? And to an extent where you have anti-vaxxers purely because of whatever that they're reading online, and they cannot even verify whether the news they're reading is real or not, right? So again, it goes into this whole whirlpool of people are reading things that they cannot verify whether it's real or not, and then they're gonna, use the information that they read and apply it in their lives. And when they do that, then the repercussion would be not understanding that particular matter, and then you're realizing that it's not helping you, so when it's not helping you, and then it just keeps growing and growing that bubble of fear and bubble of insecurity, and then it goes into depression. Because really, somehow or other, a lot of people now, especially the younger generations, are facing a really, really, really huge issue on mental health. Is for me definitely because of social media platforms. So really, I think again, we can't do anything about it because that's the generation today. But creating content and the mindset and building the mindset is very, very important. Verify the facts before you actually believe in it. I'm a great believer in this person called Edward Bernays. He's the father of propaganda. And he always said, the minds of the people are molded. So whatever that you understand, whatever that you think is now really based on what all the social medias are molding you, right? Because again, from the communication industry, it's not difficult to mold a person. Let me tell you how, right? When you create a content like Squid Games, just look at Squid Games with Netflix. Everybody in the world is buying the costumes until the next to an extent where a YouTuber spent $3 million to recreate the set and actually do a real Squid Games, right? But here's the thing: what does it do to you socially? You watch Squid Games, you love it so much for some reason, you don't know why, right? And it's just viral. And the next thing you know, you've got kids who are like 5 years old in Malaysia who are humming a children's game that's Korean. And some of them don't even know how to speak Malay. Or some of them maybe don't even know how to speak English, you know. But my point here is you don't know how to speak Korean. But because of a content, you already are within the whole realm of Korean society. So that's why if you look at Malaysia, what has content done to us? Korean chicken restaurants everywhere, right? Korean K-pop music, right? Everything is just molded to be this whole. Of course, because the Koreans are molding people to believe that everything's perfect. So that's why you can see all the idols; they're all perfect. But you can see that in the Korean society, even for the K-pops bands, they're all under depression because of what they have to do. It's definitely not healthy what they have to do in order for them to become a K-pop idol that's globally loved. You have to sacrifice a lot of things. You have to make sure that you can't get married. So all these things is a bubble that now you can see a lot of Korean artists are committing suicide, right? So that's why I'm saying content is very relevant to today's society. And creating content is the only way forward for us to really battle mental health. But in terms of by molding the mindset of how do you, so content is about molding the mindset in different perspectives, right? Only a content can do that very quickly. For you to understand something, you probably want to watch a TED talk because that's how quickly you can learn something within probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes, right? Instead of reading a whole book. How many people read books these days, right? I hope you all still do. I do that a lot, but I think people are more visually impacted now. So apart from the platform, it's already there. Content's also very important. That's something that I'm a great advocate about, right? So for women's issues and health issues, I normally don't speak so much about it. I do a lot of contents revolving around it. So how I came about to building my own content was because unfortunately our local broadcasters at that time, when I had contents, they did not recognize my contents as a commercial content and I could not air it because they said that it's commercial and it's too much towards education or edutainment or infotainment content. But the content was supposed to be inspiring young people to believe that you can achieve in life, no matter where you are in the world, as long as you work very hard. So I produce the content like that. But the broadcasters are not focusing on that yet in Malaysia, unfortunately. So I had again another group of people asking me, why is the contents industry in Malaysia still so cliche? It's still about families fighting for each other for wealth or fighting against each other for money, right? Sorry, for women. So how do we change it? Again, I told them that unfortunately the broadcasters in Malaysia they work within a certain allocation of budget. So that's why you don't see a lot of women empowering contents also because they don't deem it as a commercial value, right? So that's why end of the day, I think it's a progression. We can't compare, to be fair, we can't compare Malaysia to where the US and the UK are today. Again, as I mentioned from the beginning, I studied and we're practically 100 years behind or even more right now from the society perspective. And eventually just cope with it. Maybe when your generation comes to my age, then that would be a perfect world already in Malaysia. You know what I mean? But as of now, it would be people like me in this generation who work very hard for a better future for the next generation. So that's what I'm advocating. Women's issues in context, right? Or mental health issues must be addressed from the communication perspective, right? By filtering, because really it's nothing that society can do. All these issues are imposed to the society because it's still a responsibility of the government to make sure that all these are in place. So from the broadcasting perspective, there should be more women empowerment or women issues types of contents. From the communications perspective, really it's about filtering and like more aggressively filtering the types of contents that are going onto all the social media platforms because if it's not them, there's really nothing much that we can do. But the only thing that we can do is try to push for that to happen, really, realistically speaking, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. Yeah. And you mentioned about like women issues and content, and I mean, I just have a question. If there were to be more women in the broadcasting industry, would we be able to stop the spread of harmful messages about women and the unequal role they have in sexual relations? For example, they are the ones who normally deal with the consequences of unwanted pregnancies, being slut shamed, and having unfair standards levied onto them in cases of sexual sex. Yeah, like what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think that it's a gender issue in this case because it's really contents that are being created, right?
Mhm.
And most of the times, the contents, as I mentioned, that are being created really, really depends on the broadcasting platforms because they have their own allocation of budget and they are all profit motivated organizations, right? But the difference here is um, if they were to evolve towards what you just mentioned about creating those types of contents, it's really not a gender thing. If you look into the US and the UK where they are, you don't see only women directors that are promoting women empowerment in certain contents, right? You also see men doing that. So it's really not about having more women. It's just about having more key organizations within the industry to think about creating content that will be relevant to society. That's why I mentioned Malaysia is still focusing on very cliche contents, right? But we must evolve. And right now, at the state of the country and its politics, it's gonna be a little bit challenging for us to see those types of contents, right? But like I said, you have to be a little bit more patient. It will get there eventually. But if you're talking about other parts of the world, I think they're pretty stable. You will see a lot of contents about women and most of the women's issues. There are very, very good contents out there. And again, it's not from a women director, it's still from a male director. So end of the day, like I said, I don't want to talk about women and then have a biasness of the other gender. Then we're just cannibalizing each other. It should be a coexistence, between each other. And especially for the communications and broadcasting industry, we really cannot say that creativity and women being there, they'll do more women. That's definitely not the case. Yeah. So I believe that um, industry is very important and the direction of the industry is very important. Again, which goes back to the whole governance of the country. Lah.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you mentioned
I
about
hope that answers your
politics.
question.
Yeah, 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 it does. Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned about politics and all. So what do you think about the women in politics nowadays? Is the representation enough? Especially Malaysia.
Okay, if you're talking
Mm.
about Malaysia and global, they're two completely different things. Global,
Mm.
you can see that women are definitely there. As I mentioned earlier, you're talking about last time you couldn't even vote, right? And then now you have women prime ministers in the world. So obviously, we're progressing to some point. In Malaysia, I still remember I went to Birmingham and there was this talk on women in politics in Malaysia. And since independence, since that time, from independence of Malaysia, since the time I went in Indonesia and Birmingham, the growth of the women in politics in Malaysia was only 1%. Only 1%. But now I think there is definitely more. But if you really look at the politics in Malaysia, on the ground, on the grassroots level, we don't talk about because we always talk about this two differentiation between the urbans and also the grassroots, right? Which are all the outskirts and the rural areas of Malaysia and the masses. And if you look at the politics from the grassroots perspective, the dominance on the ground are actually the women. So it's very surprising because you think that from the women participation in politics in Malaysia, the growth isn't, very much. Maybe from the time I knew it was at 1%, now maybe it's about 5 or 6%, right? But then again, the grassroots politics, the ground movers are majority women dominant. So I think in this case, if you're saying women participation in politics on a whole, you have a lot of them. But women participation as, say, a member of parliament, right, or a court judge, or all those, I think we don't have as much as we want, right? But eventually we'll get there. I think even with this current government, we do have a few women in different ministries, right? And I think eventually it'll get better. I can't really judge because again, culturally we're very different. The most dominant race that I would say have this mindset of women, again, the prejudice mindset of women. But I hope that eventually they'll evolve and involve more women. But it will get better, I would say.
Yeah, I really hope that one day, I mean, eventually when my generation leads the new Malaysia in the future, yeah, I really hope that there's also more representation of women, and also there's more women in politics, because I believe that in politics, because like you said, um, if we add women in, we're able to get more perspectives, more insights on how we can further develop our country. And so yeah, I also really hope that for my generation, when we do become the future of Malaysia, I really hope there's also more representation for women. Yeah. Um,
Absolutely, Chris. You're only 18. By the time you hit 30, I think there should be a change because that's going to be like in 3 years or
yeah.
less. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, apart from politics, yeah, like one of your major interests is also in the telecom and broadcasting industries. Um, why do you think these industries are so heavily male dominated? Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's the question I ask myself every day too. No, really, I think this is a global thing. It's not really just a local Malaysian thing. I don't really, well, I have, like I said, as a founder and a CEO of Emirates, I really don't see a lot of women that are owners of the company. But within the telco and the broadcasting industry, there are many women. But they're probably CEOs, they're all the C levels or higher management or senior management. But you don't see a lot of founders, probably because it is not within your interest. I think women maybe, are not very much interested within the technical side of the telco and the broadcasting because it's still very labor intensive, in very labor intensive, and there are women within the industry, just not from the founder and the owner stage, but yeah, there are. It's not really male dominant within the industry. We have a lot of women in the industry. It's just that you don't really see them as much. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's really great. Yeah. Yeah. It's great to hear that nowadays that there are more women in the telecom and broadcasting industry. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
No, but I think really, Chris, you will see a lot more women within the next 5 to 6 years or 5 to 10 years.
Mm.
Because I can see even my generation at 31 in my 30s, in this group like the 90s, we're not as um, expressive as the younger generations now. A good example would be Ain, right? Where she really stepped up and say, hey, you're our PE teacher, how could you talk about rape, right? And the best part is the teacher, sued her for 1 million, and she said, no, I'm going to sue you back for five, right? So this is the younger generation of women now. And believe me, as the years pass, these women will be very, very great advocates for the future generations of women. come, maybe even for your children in the future.
Mm. Yeah, definitely,
We're
definitely.
now just building the fundamental ground for them. So
Mm.
I would leave the women advocating execution to them, to the next generation of women. I would be laying the fundamentals. So that's what my generation of people should be doing. We should be laying out the changes that should be taking place very strongly for the next generation. But if you ask us to do it, really, even we're not qualified to do it because in terms of mindset, I think um, your age group, you have more togetherness, I must say. Although the younger generations, I can tell you the great difference between the millennials and the Gen Alphas. You're the Gen Alphas, right? And your generation are people that sticks together for each other, right? My generation's a very different generation. We're all survivors, really. So we're still very individualistic rather than we are a community. So that's why I can tell you very, very honestly, based on my own experience with so many people from different age groups, from the baby boomers, right, the Gen X's, the Gen Z's, and all that. I'm telling you, the change will only come in the next couple of years by your generation. So good luck with that.
I mean, definitely your generation is spearheading the change. I mean, like I said, you guys are laying the fundamentals. So it's basically like, you guys are like paving the road for us. Like through a forest. Yeah, you guys are like, paving the road, which is
Yeah,
really
I mean,
amazing.
Chris,
Yeah.
you can see, like, I'm
Mm.
also good friends with Said Sadeh,
Mm.
right? And Said Sadeh is 28, turning 29, I think now. And it's been a very, very challenging journey for him,
Mm.
right? That's not even issue-based specific stuff, He's talking about leading a new party for young people, muda. And he
Mm.
can't even get the party registered. So that is the fear that we still have in society for the younger generations to step up, right?
Yeah.
So again, by the time me and Sade are done with everything that we're trying to do for the young people, then
Mm-hmm.
comes the execution, and we're already in our mid forties probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why it's gonna be a challenging journey for us. I mean, for me even, I'm the only youngest entrepreneur within the telco broadcasting industry. Don't talk about gender yet, just in terms of age, right? Who are the telco broadcasting personalities that you already know that's been there for like 30 years? You're talking about Tan Sri Ananda Krishna, you're talking about Tan Sri Vincent Tan, talking about Tan Sri Said Mokhtar. So these are all personalities that's been there for like 20, 30 years, and I'm this 31-year-old that's coming out and saying, hey, things should be done differently. Things should be affordable. We should create our own platform. So we should create more contents that are more, with integrity to tackle social issues. So this is what I'm trying to do, right? Which would probably take me another 9 to 10 years to achieve it, right?
Mm.
So yeah, I really wish your generation good luck for the execution
Mm.
of really making that change.
But I think on your part, like you say, you're the youngest, which I think since you're the youngest in this pool of industry leaders, I think that's why you're really an inspiration to especially my generation. The young people. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, like what you said, you're young, and it's gonna take you a few more years to get there, but definitely, you're definitely an inspiration to my generation. Definitely, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Mm.
much. I'm really glad that I'm able to share my experience. It's very hard because you know what? There's really no one that I can relate to. Majority of the personalities are all above age, above age. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I
Oh,
see.
okay. So I think we'll take some questions from Slido now. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Why do you think the media often portrays feminism negatively?
When you say media,
Mm-hmm.
what type of media? Because if you're talking about social media, then there's no surprise there, right? As I mentioned in my session, that
Mm-hmm.
um, it's really how the messaging that that particular person is trying to put across. So if it's negative, then it would be negative. If it's positive, it would be positive. But if you look at the different types of contents, if you're talking about films, you don't see feminism as something negative anymore, really. So, but the only thing here, if you look in history about feminism is always equated to aggression because they always see women who are very women, feminist, who is a feminist advocate, are very aggressive women. But that's the only relation to negativity, I think, if you ask me. But aggression is fine. It's just that that depends on the person looking at it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think I go to the next question. How do you think young people can promote the concept of empowering women in the current politics, across politics, media, and healthcare equity?
Well, frankly, how do you empower a person,
Mm,
right? You inspire the person, you encourage the person. And I'm very consistent by saying that contents are really a very good platform for us to encourage and build that empowering personality, or to bring out that personality out and to reduce the insecurity issues is through context. You have to mold the mindset towards that. If you don't do that, then it's just going to be, always within a realm of doubt. Can I do it? How do I empower? If I do this, am I right or wrong? So I think really, for me, I'm a great advocate for contents, and content is definitely a way forward for empowering everything that you just mentioned here across politics, media. Politics are very heavily invested in Instagram. Like I
mm,
mentioned just now, Syed Saddiq has no choice but to use TikTok to promote what he's trying to change in Malaysia. So yeah, content would definitely be the way forward.
mm. Uh, um, to add on to that, you mentioned about content and how it can empower women. But on the other hand, would you say that the spread of misinformation about women's bodies is influenced in part by the male dominance of the broadcasting industry?
Yeah, I think I would say yes to that.
Mhm.
Like a couple of years back, right? If you look at even in Hollywood, women were very heavily objectified, not because it's male dominant, but generally, because all the beauty pageants and things like that. So that in itself is already a concept of objectifying women, right? Don't even talk about contents yet. But your question was to what was it just now, Chris? Social
The
media as a
question
safe
was,
space?
would you say that the spread of misinformation about women's bodies is influenced in part by the male dominance, yeah,
Yeah,
in
no,
the
I,
industry?
I would say not anymore. Yeah, it
Mm,
was before, but not anymore. Now, because I think a lot of, well, in the US especially, everybody has to be very, very politically correct because they have so many issues like Black Lives Matters, and there are so many harassment issues
mhm,
that they have built a very, very safe wall around it now.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I think we have one last question over here. I think you have maybe mentioned it in your keynote speech, but I'm guessing the person asking this question would like a bit more clarification. They ask, do you think social media is a safe space for people to share about their problems and experiences?
Oh my gosh, I would definitely say no. Okay, definitely not because social media platforms allows other people to comment, right? And you don't want to share your problems and then have people commenting onto it.
Mhm,
Unless when you do it, you gotta think of when you use social media platforms, you're expressing yourself, what are you trying to gain out of it? Are you doing it deliberately because you want people to sympathize with you or give you empathy? Because then you're a prisoner to your own self, right? Into your phone where you need that kind of what do you call it, affirmation to make you feel better about your problems, right? So definitely not. I would still rather advise you to go to a professional and express yourself in a much safer environment in which
mhm,
people have no access to your personal life and comment.
mhm. Yeah, I think the session on mental health yesterday also touched on that, where if people you have feelings or you have thoughts that you wish to express, it's definitely better to one thing talk to yourself. Another thing is to also get someone who is willing to listen to you attentively. So yeah, I think yeah, to answer that question, I mean I would just like to add on a little bit to your answer. Yeah, definitely like in relation to yesterday's mental health session, definitely if you want to share experiences, any stories, definitely go to the people that you trust. yeah, social media, I don't think is really the place to do that anymore because
Yeah.
there's a lot of toxic backlash and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but Chris, I would highlight that it's still best to go to a professional to
Mhm, mhm.
help anyone out there that has any issues because end of the day, even if you go to someone close to you, they do not have the professional understanding
Mm,
to advise you on how to deal with
yeah.
your problems, right? Then it becomes a personal advice, which would then maybe not make you feel any better and just makes it worse. I've seen that personally in a lot of my friends and they take it to even TikTok, and it just becomes worse. And end up they still have to look for professional help. So immediately, if you have an issue, don't talk to your mom, don't talk to your dad. Really, that's probably not going to help you. Don't talk to your friends. Find professional help. That's my advice.
Yeah, so seek professional help. That's the main message.
Yes.
Yes. Hmm. Okay, I think we'll go for this one last question. A member of the audience asked, "May I get your view on the Libris Vova inspired ad campaign?"
Well, the problem now with a lot of organizations, especially with products like this, is they have 3 seconds now because the attention span I mentioned in contents to make someone interested in something, whether it's your content, whether it's your product. In advertising and marketing, it now has reduced to 3 seconds. At most, it's like at 15 seconds. So the biggest issue now with our advertisers is they're trying their very best to think out of the box. And sometimes they
Mm,
go overboard with the ideas that they have, right?
mm,
Whether it's wrong or right, I think it's a matter of desperation that makes them do things that they assume people would be captured or be appealed, right? So
mm.
from my perspective of Libris, I think really that's what's happening with not only them, but most of the products out there, where yeah, thinking out of the box sometimes breaches boundaries. And I'm not sure whether, again, it goes back to the governance of our, for example, ministry. If it's controversial, it should have been stopped. But unfortunately, if it didn't stop, then that's the um, lack of governance from the ministry, I would say. Yeah. But
Yeah.
really, that's what's happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, remember, as I mentioned, the platforms don't belong to us. So there's nothing much that you and me, charisma movement can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
But if you have the government intervention, then they can do like probably that much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
we definitely don't have control over the platform, but like you said, we can control the content that we do put out, because like you said,
that's right.
content is really important in because it can influence people, it can drive decisions and such. Yeah. Yeah, so
That's
I
right.
think that session was really insightful. um However, due to time constraints, I'm afraid we will have to move on to the next segment of our forum, the session on invisible illnesses. So, yeah,
Alrighty.
thank you very much, Miss Sarah, for coming and
Thank you so much.
sharing your thoughts and your expertise on this topic. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. Yeah,
Likewise. Thank you so much.
great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mhm. All right. So, okay, for this next segment, we have an amazing lineup of speakers ready to share their experiences and expertise on this very topic, invisible illnesses. They are Dr. Farouk from Persatuan Epilepsy Malaysia, Dr. Ibtisam, who is a rheumatologist at Gleneagles Hospital, Kuala Lumpur, and last but not least, Miss Noor Hussein, an SLE patient who's currently writing a book about her 40 plus years of living with SLE. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to this session's moderator, Shafika, to get the discussion going. Shafika, the floor is all yours. Yeah, I think we'll maybe wait a few seconds for Shafika to get ready. Hi, Dr. Farouk. Hi, Dr. Isam. Everybody.
Yeah,
Yep.
hi, Chris. How are you?
Good, good.
Good
Uh,
afternoon.
yes, good afternoon. Uh, oh, oh, sorry. Yeah, we have another speaker here joining us today. Um, Miss Sophia from Psoriasis Association Malaysia as well. Yeah, happy to
Hello.
have you here with us, Miss Sophia. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm good. Great. Thank you. How about you?
Doing fine. Just definitely a good start to the day.
Yeah, definitely. On a
Yeah,
Sunday, it's supposed to take a break, but we are actually,
mhm,
creating all this awareness. Definitely is
yeah,
befitting. Yeah.
yeah. Definitely a beneficial way to spend the weekend and get ready for the next
Yeah.
week. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Glad.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I would like to thank Charisma Movement, I think, for this wonderful, I think, 2 week kind of conference and virtual event. I think this is very, very important at the current time. So, well done.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, it would have been possible without all of your support and participation in this event. Really, really, thank you very much for making this event such a success. Yeah, it's really great to have you guys here. Okay. We'll wait a few more minutes for the moderator to join. Okay. Okay. Mm, yes. So, okay. Okay, this is just a little question I have before the moderator joins in and takes over the session. Um, like, what inspired all of you to, get involved in these organizations like, epilepsy, psoriasis, SLE? What was your main, driving factor?
So, I can go first.
Yep, yep, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. Uh, I think if I just give a bit of my background, I'm actually an epilepsy researcher, as well as the ultimate aim is actually to improve the quality of life of the patients or individuals suffering from epilepsy. And I think it cannot be like at the current times one person cannot do a lot of things, but it's all about teamwork. And I think, I mean, doing this session in collaboration with Charisma is a great example of that teamwork. And this is where where scientists, doctors, patient organizations, and caregivers, when they come together, I think this is where as a society we could support and improve the quality of life of individuals uh, which are living with epilepsy. So I think that's what brings me in and to contribute. Just to let you know, Malaysian Epilepsy Society, or Persatuan Epilepsy Malaysia, is actually trying their level best. Collaboration with Malaysian Society of Neuroscience, which is a bigger organization in Malaysia, and Malaysian Epilepsy Council, which also look from the clinical side and the research side of it, and then Persatuan Epilepsy Malaysia. This collaboration actually a great example how uh, all of us actually trying to help improve the quality of life of the individuals with epilepsy. So yeah, that's in a short what why I joined Epilepsy Malaysia Society.
Mm,
Well,
that's
good afternoon, everyone. As for me, being a doctor who actually deal with the patient directly, so we feel that the patient needs a lot more than what we can offer during the clinic. So that's why by joining the society, we can actually meet them outside and try to understand what they're going through, not even clinically, but outside as well. There are a lot of psychosocial issues that we need to actually try and understand, and along the way guide them how to live with these chronic illnesses. So I think that's the reason why I joined this lupus. And also sometimes we get this opportunity of sharing informations. It'll be good kind of exposure to the public as well, to be more aware of themselves if they have any symptoms, or even their colleagues, their friends, their family members who's suffering from lupus. So in a way, it adds on, it helps them really to kind of fight through the illness. I think that's the reason why I joined this society.
Mm. That's
Well, as for me, service has been a center of life since I was very young. Because growing up in a Baha'i family, we do a lot of social services in the neighborhood and also within the community, right? So this journey just started like 6 years ago when I was like terribly ill and I was bedridden for almost 1 year because of psoriasis and also psoriatic arthritis as well. And then because dating back when 30 years ago when I was first diagnosed with psoriasis, there wasn't anyone for me to rely on except my family member being a pillar of, a support system, because you definitely need someone to support you. And when I noticed that things
Hello?
around me. Okay.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Miss Sophia, you can go ahead, continue.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Right.
Uh, so when I was bedridden for a year, and then
Mhm.
I started to notice that besides doing whatever community service that I'm doing, I also need to step up and start creating more awareness for patients who are having this kind of condition. Not only that, helping the community as in the psoriasis patient, but we also need to like continuously create the awareness so that people will start knowing what is this psoriasis all about. And it is not only about the externalization, but it is also internally, which also will be impacting your mental health and so on and so forth. And things, if let's say it's not being treated on time, things can go even worse. So that actually, then after that, when I step up, so my first article came out in the Star paper in year 2015, and then the journey continues until now. Yeah, it just never stopped. So that's a little bit story about how I, joined this PAM and also other coalition, to help out as many as I can within my capacity, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really really great.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think Shafika is already here. Shafika, are you ready?
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think you may need to adjust your background. Yeah, you can remove the background. Totally fine. Okay, so yeah, I'll pass it to Shafika to continue on from here. See you guys then.
See you around.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Assalamualaikum, and very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Shafika Azmin.
Hi, good afternoon, Shafika.
I am representing Women for Refugees as the moderator for today's talk, which is Invisible Illness. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our speaker for today. Our first speaker is Dr. Farouk Sheikh from Persatuan Epilepsi Malaysia. Dr. Farouk is an associate professor at Monash University, Malaysia, and ex-co-member of Malaysian Society of Epilepsy. He is an expert in neuropharmacology and interested in both discovery and understanding the disease and mechanism of epilepsy and Alzheimer's disease. He is also involved in a project that tackles the stigma associated with epilepsy and improving the quality of life of individuals. Our second speaker is Dr. Ibtizam Mota. She is a rheumatologist. A rheumatologist is a doctor of internal medicine who specializes in arthritis and other musculoskeletal conditions and systemic autoimmune disease. She is currently a resident consultant and a rheumatologist at Clinical Hospital Kuala Lumpur. Lastly, we have our warrior, Miss Nur Hussein, which is an LSE patient. LSE means systemic lupus erythematosus. She was diagnosed with SLE in 1980 at the age of 16, and she is also a writer and currently working in a book called Aku dan LSE, which translates to Me and LSE. For our no holdback talk today, we are collaborating with Persatuan LSE Malaysia, a long-standing organisation aimed at spreading awareness and lupus patient, Persatuan Epilepsi Malaysia, Psoriasis Association Malaysia, and Women for Refugees. Invisible illness is also known as hidden illness, are illness or disability that is not immediate and apparent, and are typically chronic illness that the condition significantly impair normal activities on daily basis. Um, okay. According to brightfocus.org, an organization that do research for mind disease, at least 50 million people worldwide are believed to be living with Alzheimer's disease. However, most of the cases goes undiagnosed until the condition gets worse and cannot be cured. Alzheimer's disease is also believed to start developing with patients in their early 40s, which at that time they still look healthy and doesn't have any visible or immediate symptoms. Due to the fact that the visible illness isn't always apparent and patient usually goes undiagnosed for a very long time, Dr. Farouk, how do you think having an open conversation about medical history helps and why it is important to talk about it?
Thanks, Shafika, for question. I think we already also have Sophia Lowy from PM. I think you forgot to introduce her, so she's also here, just to let everyone know.
Thank you,
To answer
doctor.
your question, I think open conversations are very, very important, especially conditions which are invisible. I mean, as very commonly known diseases like diabetes and hypertension, which people can't see it. Similarly, a lot of other hidden diseases like if we talk about psoriasis, or if we talk about epilepsy, Alzheimer's, and so on and so forth. It is very, very important to talk about diseases, because the society we stay in, there are different layers of stigma. One is which is perceived by the patient themselves. That's the first layer. The patient need to be open about what they are suffering from and what's wrong with them. I think without that, they can't seek help. And the second layer comes with the family and caregiver, and I think that's a major part. We all as a society, which actually is very looks like a very tough barrier, where I think most of us are actually get stuck, and this is where the patient suffering uh, keep increasing instead of giving support to them. And then the bigger layer is about the overall society, and which also includes in sometimes even healthcare providers. If we just talk about a simple disease which is schizophrenia, which commonly people call it madness, it's just a disbalance of neurotransmitters, two chemical, just one specific chemical, dopamine, which gets modulated, and that person become mad. And it's just a simple drug which can actually bring back that neurochemical level to normal, and it can be treated. But the stigma is so big, like the patient's family throw them out and do all those things. And this is again also happening with a lot of condition, like especially if I talk about epilepsy. The support, like first of all, there are a lot of misconception or misunderstanding on the disease itself. People do not accept this is a disease condition. Sometimes people think it's a demonic possession, it is some ill spirit, and so and so forth. So I think if we talk about this, people will understand this is not that what they are thinking, but it is really a disease, and it need an attention and treatment on that. Back to you, Shafika.
Um, okay, thank you, Dr. Farouk, for the input. I wanted to apologize for not introducing Dr. Sophia. Um, Dr. Sophia is a patient diagnosed with psoriasis at the age of 12, followed by arthritis and fibromyalgia syndrome. Those condition doesn't have a cure, and she um, she hello okay so next to me. An autoimmune disease is a condition arising from an abnormal immune response to a functioning body part. There are at least 80 types of autoimmune disease, and nearly any body part can be involved. However, many patients are not aware of the symptoms, and even doctors sometimes misdiagnose patients with autoimmune disease. So, Dr. Itizam, why do you think autoimmune disease largely left unknown?
Thank you very much, Ms. Shafika. Well, with regards to your question, autoimmune disease is where there are antibodies attacking our cells, and they can present in many different ways. Different patients present differently. They may have multiple presentation at the start, or they may just have small symptoms. At the end of the day, we then tie them to become autoimmune disease. I suppose why this condition is not detected or is misdiagnosed or late diagnosis is because of the different non-specific presentation. When they get referred to the rheumatologist, we will then try and dig out other symptoms or even do blood tests that can complement or can diagnose the disease. There are also rare conditions that we don't see them very frequently, so that makes the diagnosis even harder for normal doctors to pick up. Does that answer you? Sorry. Yes, back to you, Ms. Shafika.
I think you're on mute, Shafika.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you, doctor, for your wonderful explanation. So, many patients with invisible illness look healthy outside. That makes people around them, including medical practitioners, question whether they are really sick. For example, people who have a condition that makes them unable to walk or stand, they will use wheelchair. The visibility of the wheelchair makes people instantly think, oh, this person is ill or disabled. However, with invisible illness, it is quite impossible to see, especially at the first time. Thus, people who have invisible illness constantly having to face discrimination. I remember when I was a kid, I watched a documentary about invisible illness, and this young lady was discriminated against because she uses the disabled parking lot. She gets often get hate letters from strangers saying that she is evil for occupying disabled parking lot. Her car window even got smashed, and strangers often call authority on her just because her illness is not visible. So to Miss Sophia, um, how can we show empathy towards others who may be suffering but we cannot see it?
I think first and foremost, thank you so much for the question, Shafika. Uh, First and foremost, we shouldn't be very judgmental about a person, before even understanding what is the condition or diseases they're going through, because a lot of condition and diseases is not visible, right? It's actually happening within. So often, the judgmental part, being judgmental or judge on somebody's externalization is something that is very very wrong, because this is what been happening lately, or rampantly, which we see that people often criticize or even just comment certain thing without knowing what the person is going through. So empathy is virtue is that is so important, that we should be empath, because I think everyone in our family or even extended family, someone will be impacted with the illness or health issues, right? So if your loved one is actually being impacted, and they are suffering from it, automatically the empath will be actually embedded in your virtue itself. That's how I believe. All right. So to show compassion, if you can't show compassion or empathy to someone, at least don't say anything. Just keep quiet. So I think what is happening in social media, or even especially on social media platform, a lot of them who are suffering quietly are actually stepping up to actually voice out, or also share their journey, or also speaking about or sharing the awareness and whatnot. I think from there we actually can learn and try to be empath and show some compassion to the patients, or whoever that you are seeing, at this point in time. I think that's what I believe, like, don't be judgmental towards someone before even understanding what the person is going through, or even if you don't know the person, don't say anything. I mean, that's what I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Miss Sophia. As a person who suffers from psoriasis as well, and other invisible illness, I could say that people who are judgmental is very it's hard for me to go through my daily life because of people who are judgmental, and we should not be as judgmental, and we should be understanding to everyone. Okay. So next, thank you, Miss Sophia. Based
Most
on my
welcome.
experience as a patient myself and a caseworker at Home for Refugees and doctors on ground, helping vulnerable people get medical help, I often dismiss or rejected getting adequate medical attention due to racism, lack of empathy, and lack of awareness for medical practitioners and other healthcare workers. So, Miss Nur Hussein, as a patient, why do you think it is important to advocate for oneself in a medical setting?
Saya Nur Hussein. Boleh saya cakap dalam bahasa?
Boleh.
Okey. Okey, saya mula didiagnose SLE pada tahun 1980. Pada mulanya masa zaman sekolah tingkatan 1, saya tak tahan kena panas. Bila saya kena panas, saya akan pingsan di sekolah lah, sehingga pada masa saya nak ambil SPM tu, keadaan dah macam semakin teruk sikit lah sebab saya pingsan dan sebagainya. Selepas habis SPM, doktor pakar daripada Kuantan, mereka telah refer saya ke Hospital Besar Kuala Lumpur. Dan apabila saya di Hospital Besar Kuala Lumpur, saya dimasukkan ke ward dan saya lalui beberapa rawatan. Pada masa tu doktor tak tahu saya ni sakit apa. Pada mulanya ada yang suspek saya leukemia because of sebab selalu hilang darah, pingsan, lemah semua tu. Kemudian selepas dibuat rawatan demi rawatan, akhirnya doktor sepakat mengatakan bahawa saya didiagnose sebagai SLE. Dan pada masa tu 1980, SLE ni adalah satu nama yang terlalu baru. Jadi semua orang masih belum tertanya-tanya apa tu SLE. Bila saya sakit, diorang cakap sakit apa? SLE. SLE tu apa? Mereka akan silang tanya. Jadi untuk memudahkan orang faham, saya akan cakap SLE tu kurang darah. Saya akan terang macam tu lah dekat mereka. And then selepas saya melalui rawatan tu, pada tu saya usia 16 tahun. So pada masa tu tidak mudah lah untuk kita pada seorang remaja untuk sentiasa berada di hospital. Kira hospital tu macam rumah kedua lah bagi saya. Dalam masa sebulan tu apabila darah hilang, saya terpaksa masuk blood transfusion. Saya kena autoimmune hemolytic anemia, yang di mana sel-sel darah merah saya dan sel darah putih tidak berfungsi dengan normal lah. Sehingga sekarang pun setakat hari ni yang saya berbual ni, darah merah saya buat masa ni 7.3% HB dan darah putih saya 2.0, masih di bawah below normal. Jadi saya setujulah yang kita ni SLE ni adalah sakit yang tidak kelihatan sebenarnya. Kalau di luaran, di zahir, saya boleh buat apa saja macam orang lain buat. Tetapi sebenarnya saya tengah fight untuk diri saya sendiri dalam mind. Di luaran orang tak tahu pun yang saya ni sekarang ni kurang darah, darah merah, darah putih. Tapi saya masih lagi boleh jumpa kawan-kawan, boleh menulis buku, boleh ketawa, boleh enjoy macam orang lain. Tapi sebenarnya hanya saya dan doktor je tahu bahawa saya perlu berhati-hati kerana kekurangan yang ada pada saya lah, iaitu SLE. Apalagi di musim COVID ni. Kita kena lebih menjaga diri kita lah daripada orang lain. Kerana macam situasi saya, darah putih yang terlalu rendah dan darah merah yang masih belum normal adalah bahayalah untuk saya terlalu terdedah di luar sana lah. Cuma kalau saya keluar pun saya akan jagalah SOP dengan double SOP lah kalau berbanding dengan orang-orang biasa. Ada apa-apa lagi ke?
Kita question to ni Dr. Itizam. Okay, thank you Miss Nur Hussein. So Dr. Itizam, since the COVID pandemic hits, how does it impact to the autoimmune disease patient, and how does it impact the autoimmune disease growing in Malaysia?
Well, to start with, autoimmune is quite, I would say, relatively new. It's been 2 years with us since 2019, and autoimmune, with COVID, it affected your immune system. When the virus attack you, there will be introduction of this antigen, and the immune system will be activated. We see those who are already suffering with autoimmune diseases, meaning diagnosed, on treatment, they are more at risk of getting infection in the first place, and severe infection. They may end up like being in category 4, category 5. We even had morbidities in our lupus patient with COVID-19. At the same time, we wanted to protect these patients from getting infection. So we would encourage them strongly to go for vaccination. But nonetheless, we need to also make sure that the infection will be optimum in them, meaning after the vaccination, they will get adequate antibody response. So we need to time it properly. Usually our guidelines is that for vaccination in autoimmune, the patient has to be relatively low disease activity or remission if possible on minimal immunosuppressants. For those who, we talk about autoimmune disease in general, those on methotrexate, they need to stop methotrexate after the vaccination so that they can mount adequate antibody with the vaccination. Those on steroids, the steroids has to be minimal 20 below to make sure, again, the body can produce the antibody after the vaccination. Those who have who are on quite strong immunosuppression, we advise them not to take the vaccine yet, but be safe lah. Do not go out, or if they were to go out, double mask or even the face shield and whatnot. We have also seen that there have been more cases presenting with unexplained symptoms. How do I say? They come in with joint pain, they come in with rashes, but everything are negative. So we wonder whether COVID is triggering this multi-inflammatory system disease, whether it's in children or in adult. We are seeing more of that nowadays. So I think that is how the impact of COVID to our autoimmune diseases in general. But then we normally will kind of go through individual cases. For every patient who is under our follow-up, we will give them advice specifically when they can take the vaccination. If they were infected, what do they do? We often get them warded to monitor them very closely. It depends really on the individual case. If they are ill, different. If they're quite well, then advised as necessary. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for your explanation. So I have a next question for Dr. Farouk. Um, okay, so as a neuropharmacology, um, how do we know that we have that invisible illness, for example, Alzheimer disease or other like epilepsy or other invisible diseases, so that we can get help, and what is the procedure to get help in Malaysia?
Uh, I think in terms of epilepsy, there is first of all, I think whenever anyone gets an epileptic seizures and they suspect, I mean, if it is the very first time and they are not sure, it's very very important to immediately seek help of the medical doctor to confirm, and there are number of tests and all to confirm whether it is an epilepsy or it could be just seizures, because uh, seizures could be just an result of some event. For example, some children at very young age, when they have high fever or high body temperature, sometimes it leads to seizures, but that doesn't mean they are having epileptic seizures. So there is a basic difference between seizure and epilepsy. This could be as a result of hypoxia, hypothermia. I'm talking about lack of oxygen or high temperature, and even some people, when their blood glucose level goes very high, they may have this seizure, but that doesn't mean it is an epilepsy. Epilepsy has a different definition, where their seizures has to be recurrent, it has to be repeated, and that only with a proper diagnosis and tests, it is confirmed that it is epileptic seizures. So I think whenever there is a first seizures, I think it is very very important to approach GP and get a proper investigation, whether it is just a one-off thing or there is something underlying in the brain which probably leads to a serious complication in later in the life. So this is again seeking urgent attention immediately, I think is very very important. And I think luckily in Malaysia, with Persatuan Epilepsy Malaysia, there are a lot of awareness work is been done, and the beauty of the Epilepsy Society and the Epilepsy Council, I will say, the patient organization and the caregiver, especially the healthcare organization, they works very closely to each other. So the requirement of the patient and what is advances in the treatment management and different aspects of these new drugs coming into picture, I think it is taken very much care, and at the same time try to understand how to make it accessible and affordable for the patient. All those things are comes hand in hand, and both the council and the society trying to work together, actually bring it best to the patients. I think that's what they're trying to do. I just want to add one thing which Miss Sophia early mentioned about people on the being judgmental, and this is again one of the biggest problem when we talk about Asian countries as a whole, and it does not really stop only in Asian countries, but even in Western countries there is the same issue, and this issue comes from two things. One is the maturity in the people. And when we talk about maturity of the people, it comes from the awareness and knowledge and information, correct information I'm talking about, they do have about the particular illness or disease, or about respecting each other irrespective of what other person is doing, and without even knowing about them, we try to make a decision or make a judgment on them. I think so. Awareness, which actually, again, congratulations to Charisma, what we are trying to do here is very, very important. More we talk about it, then more awareness we will spread in the society. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Farouk for the input. We have Miss Dunn, who said that we should have something like the sunflower lanyard, where others can identify that you have a disability even when you don't look ill. This sunflower lanyard is famous in America, in the United States of America, where people who have disabilities, invisible disabilities, will wear that lanyard so that people know that they are ill. So, Miss Sophia, what do you think about the lanyard and other option that we have, that we can tell how we can tell people that we have illness, invisible illness?
Thank you for the question, Shafika. Um, I think to begin with, just like how our, differently able people, especially people on the wheelchair, they have a signboard to say that, okay, it's a special parking spot for them. And then that is goes for the externalization. But speaking about internal illnesses, or, those like mental health issues that we are having, I personally feel that, the maturity level for the Asians are still not there yet. For us to say that, guys, look, I have this issue with me. Guys, look, I have this issue. But I don't know whether they wanted to put themselves forward to say that, to have that particular courage to say that, hey, I got this issue. But most of the time, people always show their, perfect side of them. They wouldn't want to show their insecurity. If I have a skin problem, I want to look pretty just like any other girls. I would like to cover myself with makeup and everything, and I wouldn't want to tell them that I have psoriasis. But in this case, I am not, because I'm the person who's creating awareness. So I put myself out there to show them, look, I have this problem. This is more to, because education is an instrument, for us to gain knowledge, just for the social change and whatnot. So I don't think the society or even the people who are going through such a problem are ready to put, front there to say that, guys, I got this issue. But the idea, probably for the Western culture, like what Dr. Farooq said, that probably they have some sort of like open-minded kind of a mindset, able to perceive everything in a very positive manner and whatnot. But Asian culture, based on my personal experience, they are still not ready yet, because the knowledge or the awareness is still not there at top level. So yeah, but that is my personal point of view. Maybe others might have other point of view as well. Thank you, Shafika.
Thank you, Miss Sophia. Um, Miss Nur Hussein or Dr. Ibtizam or Dr. Farooq, any suggestion for the lanyard and other things that can help to people to identify that we have invisible illness, or is it just like, oh, we don't have to talk about it?
Yeah. I think just to add what Miss Sophia mentioned, is definitely we have to do a lot of groundwork before try to think about any lender. I think the soil is not so fertile yet to actually bring those things up, because that probably end up more stigma and discrimination, which we haven't prepared and haven't done enough awareness work, where anyone will be very easily just walk and nobody actually stigmatize or discriminate. But I think a lot of homework to be done before actually we try to get into that.
I suppose really it depends on what kind of illnesses we are dealing with. If it is cancer, it's fair enough. People acknowledge cancer worldwide. But for something which is invisible, like mental health issues, I think the stigmatization will be a problem. And the patients are not ready to take it. Even themselves are fighting to actually handle it. Now, what more if the public knows? You know, yeah. But it's a good thought. I mean, I hope sooner or later we are ready for this. So there will be a lot more attention given or appropriate treatment for these patients. But we're not there yet. I agree with you, Sophia.
Thank you, Doctor.
Uh, Macam okey, saya pun setuju pandangan doktor semua, terutama dari segi sebagai pesakit SLE yang saya pun pernah dapat rawatan dengan Dr. Ibtizam, dan juga saya dapati ramai, saya dah buka satu page SLE Fighters untuk saya sebagai orang lama yang dah berpengalaman sebagai 40 tahun lebih dah saya dalam SLE, and then saya tengok kebanyakan sekarang ni yang kena SLE ni seawal umur 4 tahun. Dah ada dah 4 tahun, ibu dia rasa macam tak tahu nak buat apa-apa sebab anak dia kecil lagi dah kena SLE. Kemudian ada remaja, ada yang macam dah putus asa sebab mereka rasa orang-orang sekeliling tidak memahami situasi SLE atau sakit yang mereka ada ni. Sebab SLE ni kan di luaran tak nampak. Jadi kalau kadang-kadang tiba-tiba mereka sakit, mereka tak sihat, macam orang yang tak memahami ni dia rasa macam kita pura-pura je sakit. Sebab semalam okey je, tiba-tiba hari ni dah terbaring, tak boleh nak buat apa yang kita biasa buat. Jadi saya selalu bagi mereka motivasi lah sebagai kakak kan, tapi saya jadikan contoh yang saya lalui. Macam contoh, macam kita tak boleh merahsiakan atau malu untuk mengaku yang kita ni ada SLE. Sebab bagi saya semua orang akan ada sakit mereka yang tersendiri. Dan kita ni telah terpilih untuk dianugerahkan sakit SLE ni, jadi kita ni kena merasa syukur sekurang-kurangnya kita bukan sampai ke tahap kanser. SLE ni sebenarnya boleh, dia tak boleh baik saya rasa, tetapi dia boleh dirawat dan boleh dikawal. Itu pengalaman saya sendiri. Sebab saya ceritakan pengalaman saya lah, sebab ini pengalaman kita sendiri senang kan cerita. Jadi saya pernah pada satu ketika dulu, saya kehilangan darah boleh kata setiap 3 minggu. Setiap 3 minggu sekali saya akan kehilangan darah. Jadi masa tu saya masih bekerja, sebab tu saya kata SLE ni kita tak boleh merahsiakan. Jadi di pejabat saya, semua ketua-ketua saya memang tahu saya sakit SLE dan saya selalu terangkan pada mereka apa itu SLE. Jadi bila tiba-tiba saya ada sesekali saya pengsan di pejabat atau saya rasa lemah, saya selalu mendapat sokongan lah daripada ketua-ketua kawan-kawan sepejabat sebab mereka faham yang kita sakit ni bukan buat-buat. Maknanya kalau kita sihat, kita akan buat kerja kita sebaik mungkin, tapi kalau tiba-tiba kita terpaksa warded sampai seminggu, 2 minggu, mereka faham yang kita ni masuk ward bukan kerana kita suka-suka, tapi kita terpaksa masuk. Jadi pada ketika yang darah saya hilang tu, doktor pun macam pelik lah, kenapa lepas masuk 2 paim darah, 3 minggu je darah saya boleh bertahan, lepas tu hilang. Saya ingat saya selama 3 bulan macam tu lah, masuk darah hilang, tapi saya kena ada kekuatan. Emosi kita memang kena kuat. Sebab tu ada adik-adik yang PM saya kata mereka dah rasa down, mereka dah rasa macam putus asa, mereka dah macam, ada yang kata sampai dia tak nak hidup lah. Jadi saya bagi mereka contoh macam mana saya melalui sakit yang kalau masa saya duduk di tangan saya tu, sampai jarum pun sampai dah tak boleh nak masuk dekat urat saya. Boleh kata sebab terlalu sangat dicocok untuk masuk darah tu. Tapi kerana sebagai SLE ni kita kena kuat. Kita jangan fikir orang sekeliling, kita fikir diri kita. Kita nak sihat, kita kena kuat, kita kena follow apa yang doktor pesan, kita kena makan ubat ikut aturan doktor. Di samping tu sebagai orang Islam kita kenalah berdoa, minta agar kita kuat untuk melawan ni sakit kita ni lah. Itu yang saya buat. Dan ada ketikanya saya sendiri pun ada juga masa kita rasa down bila kita tengok orang lain sihat, kawan-kawan kita sihat, kita terpaksa terlantar di hospital, terpaksa masuk darah, keluar masuk hospital, seolah-olah hospital tu dah jadi rumah kedua bagi pesakit-pesakit SLE lah. Tapi saya nak nasihatkan kepada adik-adik SLE atau siapa-siapa yang ada sakit, yang penting pokok pangkal dia adalah hati dan diri kita. Kalau kita lemah, sakit tu akan menguasai kita. Jadi kita tak boleh lemah. Kita kena kuat untuk kita lawan sakit yang kita lalui tu. Itu sebab saya buat satu buku, Aku dan SLE. Sebab buku ni sebenarnya adalah buah tangan saya selama 40 tahun saya mengidap SLE ni, supaya generasi-generasi yang akan datang boleh menggunakan semangat saya melawan SLE selama 40 tahun ni untuk jadikan sedikitlah panduan atau ilmu untuk mereka mengatasi, supaya jangan kita down bila kita ada sakit. Tak kira lah sakit SLE ke apa sakit pun, sekiranya kita tak kuat, minda kita tak kuat, emosi akan mengawal kita. Jadi kalau boleh, biar kita yang kawal emosi kita bila kita sakit. Baru kita boleh lalui kita nak lawan sakit kita tu lah. Tu yang saya buat selama ni.
Thank you Ms. Nur Hussein for the input. I agree with all of you for the stigmatization and in our culture it's not ready. We are not ready yet to talk about it publicly. Um, as a person who suffers from psoriasis, and I also suffers from depression, very like highly bad lah, depression. My psoriasis and my depression go undiagnosed for years because of the stigma around me. Like I have psoriasis on my back and on my head, on my scalp. Whenever I go to surau or masjid and I took my hijab off to take wudu, everyone be like, "Eh, apa tu? Like, what is that?" Like, they will like stay away from me because it's that, like it hurts me a lot lah. Because like psoriasis is not something that can be, it's not contagious, but people don't know about it, so it's hard for me. And also for depression, because I suffer from depression for 5+ years, but only like few months ago I did get help for my depression because the stigmatization around me, because people always tell me that if I have depression and I diagnose professionally, people will be like I cannot get jobs because who wants to hire someone with depression, who wants to hire someone who cannot get out of bed, who cannot like do like daily activities like normal. So I do agree with everyone, but with that we need to still need to put all the information out there and then make people aware of the illness and all the like to all the taboo, to be more aware lah to ni. So I just want to ask Miss Sophia again, like how do you think that we can like put like spread awareness to people out there?
Thank you, Shafika. So to me, at one point in my life, right, this is during my early stages, when I've been diagnosed with psoriasis. People ask me, what is that? That appearing on your forehead and hands. I just said that silap makan lah. I makan ikan or something like that, just to like, I don't want to explain more about the condition because I was not ready yet to put myself out there. But one thing most importantly is like, even though psoriasis is not contagious, but the awareness is, you continue to speak to people who always approach you and ask you what is the situation that you're going through. This is also another way of educating them, that from them to being an ignorant, because many times in my life I've been humiliated by people, by the general public, face to face, or even like whispering to another person and stuff like that. So all those actually somehow have impacted me in terms of my mental health as well, because that is but I don't blame them but for being ignorant, but I also blame myself for not educating the public. So most importantly, if let's say we wanted to see the maturity community at one point, then whatever that we are doing currently should be continued. And not only that, we impart the knowledge to the people who doesn't know, and also encourage them to also create awareness at their within their capacity. So when we do this, then there's a ripple effect happening, and then eventually the entire mankind or humanity, you call it, they will know what is this all about. So to me, the first step should start within ourselves. Then eventually it will spread all over, like it can multiple, and it can just go double and many folds. That's what I believe. So it's continuing, talk to people. And it doesn't matter if they ask you 1,001 question, but you don't give up in actually explaining to them. That's how I believe this whole thing should happening in that way. Yeah. Thank you, Shafika.
Thank you, Miss Sophia. There's a question about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. So a few years ago, I think it was when I was in high school still, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was very famous to spread awareness about ALS disease. So what do you think about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, and was it really to raise awareness or just a trend that was going on? To anyone who can answer?
I think some of these events, especially when celebrities are involved and taking challenge. Ice bucket is one thing, but I think when you talk about ALS, people try to get a bit curious on like, oh, what is ALS about, and they at least try to Google, and then that's the way actually you create awareness. So I think same goes with many diseases and condition. And if I talk about epilepsy, there is always a yearly meeting in Disneyland, which is talking about epilepsy very specifically, and there is International Epilepsy Day, which even in Malaysia we try to celebrate in collaboration with PEM and other organization who are interested. So I think all these stuff are very very important. And if to go down further, because if you look at the the older generation or Gen X are still we haven't put enough efforts for the awareness and all those things. So the stigma you're gonna get is basically from these two generation mainly. But if you look at Gen Z and the millennials, I think we have a lot of work to do. If we start right from, I mean, if I give example of the Canadian curriculum at the school level, they have for primary, secondary, and different levels, they have created a different modules for epilepsy awareness, and they get certificate, they complete one course. So I think right from the beginning, from the school, if you try to raise awareness that even a kid who is suffering from epilepsy, for example, having seizures in the school will not put him in trouble or put him down, or face all those discrimination and shame when he or she has epileptic seizures, because now his friends and his classmates basically will be helping him by learning the first aid about it. I've been recently, the PM has conducted a school awareness, a very large program where I think many schools in Malaysia participate. About more than 1,000 of children, school children participated in the first aid program. And if they know this, okay, they know this is very early, they know how to tackle it, I think then it will rather create a supportive environment even for the kids who is having seizures. And right from top, we are talking about when the colleagues who are working in the offices, and if they have an epileptic seizures, there will be other colleagues who will be helping rather than discriminating. And the person will be like, I mean, currently situation is like there is a discrimination even in employment for people with epilepsy. If the employer knows about their epileptic condition, they are most likely to lose the job, because there is not even enough awareness, there is not even enough support. I mean, as Dr. Ibtisam mentioned, like some of the chronic diseases like cancer, diabetes, and hypertension is well accepted by the society. And if let's say a colleague who just diagnosed with diabetes or hypertension, everyone will be very supportive of them, like in the office, like, okay, take care, don't eat that, take care, have a healthy diet, and these and that. And even office will put certain flexibility in timing and other stuff. But that thing is not yet there with other invisible illnesses like epilepsy. In fact, if somebody get a seizure at office time or in the office, then it's most likely. And I think in our PM group, there are a lot of people, they share their stories, like their epileptic seizures, actually end up, they lost their job because having seizures at the workplace. And there are a lot of people who had epilepsy and then they had their marriage dissolved because of the epilepsy, because the partner is not ready to take it. So I think all these challenges are very much there because we haven't worked right from the school level to raise awareness. And so those people do not have those kind of I will say uh, uh, empathy as well as the support system build or inculcate in them right from the school. So they can't take it. It's very naive or very new to them to take something or accept something which they haven't done in their whole lifetime. And I think we as a human being take a lot of time to adapt and adjust to certain things. And I think especially when they themselves do not have a first-hand experience, or at least their loved one who suffered from that disease, they will not take it. So I think it needs a lot of effort and lot of groundwork and homework right from the schooling to all the different levels, like conducting seminars at the university levels, those who are already in university, to raise conducting small workshops and seminars at the workplaces, to make employer aware like these things are there, it needs support. If you can help, then we can actually improve the quality of life for individuals who are suffering from invisible illnesses, like either you talk about psoriasis or you talk about other autoimmune disease and epilepsy as well.
May I add? I feel it's everyone's responsibility, being the patient themselves, being the relative, the workplace, and everyone. I mean, as a start, Ms. Nur Hussein showed us her effort to put up a blog, to even write a book explaining what lupus is. Like for us doctors, we try to go, we target the general practitioners, we do public forums and everything. We used to be having live face-to-face, but nowadays it's virtual. But what Charisma Movement is doing is excellent. Every week there'll be forums. I think this is a good effort, and this should continue, as Dr. Farouk mentioned. For Miss Sophia yourself, you are a sufferer. Miss Shafika as well. So your own experience, if you can share, to start with your colleagues, your family, and that's how we try to spread the awareness. And I think a lot of work needs to be done so that it becomes accepted in the community, and they can have normal life like other people do. You see, I mean, they can work. They're not being cannot work, marriage, this whatever complications or whatever things that could happen badly from having a disease. I think that's all very important thing now.
Thank you, Dr. Farooq and Dr. Itizam. I agree with both of you about we start small and then we grow big and big. Start at school, at work, with our colleagues, with our friends and our family. It's very a good start. So before we end our session, I would like to ask Ms. Nur Hussein about your book, Aku dan LSE. Can you talk about your book a little bit?
Okay, SLE. Okay, sebenarnya saya dah lama bercita-cita untuk menghasilkan sebuah buku tentang diri saya dan SLE. Sebab pengalaman yang setiap insan lalui itu dia berbeza. Mungkin apa yang saya lalui tidak ada pada sahabat yang lain, dan apa yang sahabat lain lalui tak ada pada saya. Jadi pengalaman saya daripada usia 16 tahun mengidap SLE, kemudian saya masuk alam remaja, bekerja, and then berkahwin dan membesarkan anak dalam keadaan saya pada masa itu dah sendiri. Jadi emosi yang saya cakap tadi, kita kena kuat. Kita kena kuat untuk, kalau kita sakit, macam mana kita nak membesarkan insan-insan yang kita sayang di sekeliling kita. Okey, saya saya cerita pengalaman saya. Okey, macam tadi Puan cakap, kalau kita, orang-orang sekeliling kita ni, perlukah kita cakap kita ni SLE? Ada ke orang yang nak ambil kita jadi isteri? Contohlah, sebab kita sakit SLE. Sebab saya pernah diberitahu oleh doktor, sekiranya saya kahwin, mungkin besar kemungkinan saya tak boleh ada cahaya mata. Jadi perkara tu masa saya belum berkahwin, saya akan serasa dia akan macam menghantui saya. Oh, kalau saya SLE, saya tak boleh, bila saya kahwin, saya tak ada zuriat. So ada ke lelaki yang akan menerima kita? Apabila kita beritahu saya SLE, saya tak akan ada zuriat. Saya rasa 90% lelaki mungkin akan menolak kita. Jadi apa yang saya buat, sebelum saya berkahwin, saya bawa bakal suami saya tu pergi berjumpa dengan doktor saya sendiri. doktor pakar saya. And then doktor pakar beritahu dia apa sebenarnya sakit SLE itu kepada dia. Sebab ini penting pada saya untuk sahabat-sahabat di luar sana yang masih belum berumah tangga. Apa yang saya buat ni bukan yang terbaik, tapi saya rasa adalah langkah-langkah yang betul kerana kadang-kadang pasangan kita tak tahu apa itu SLE. Dia tahu kita dari luaran sebab kita SLE ni sakit yang tidak unknown yang tak nampak, tak kelihatan. Jadi apabila tiba-tiba nanti kalau kita dah berumah tangga, kemudian kita lemah, kita tak boleh nak angkat berat, kita tak boleh nak buat kerja yang berat, kita cepat letih. Jadi kita takut kalau pasangan kita tak memahami kita, itu yang akan mengganggu keharmonian rumah tangga. Jadi apabila doktor saya dah terang SLE saya melibatkan darah atau immune sistem saya darah merah dan saya darah putih saya tak stabil, dan saya tak boleh terdedah kepada pancaran matahari, emosi saya tak boleh terlalu terganggu, dan doktor kata saya tidak, apa kata orang, SLE ni sebenarnya sakit yang manja lah sebenarnya kalau boleh dikatakan, sebab everything semua benda yang apa kata orang memerlukan perhatian, memerlukan. Jadi kalau kita cari bakal suami yang tak boleh memberi perhatian kepada isteri dia, macam dia harap isteri dia boleh buat apa yang perempuan lain yang buat, so itu nanti akan mengganggu sedikit. Jadi akhirnya saya pun pasangan saya terimalah seadanya saya sakit SLE semua. Selepas berkahwin, satu lagi fasa yang saya lalui, saya dua tahun perkahwinan saya yang pertama, saya tak ada zuriat. Jadi fikiran saya dah terfikir, betul lah ni yang doktor kata kalau kita kahwin kita tak boleh ada zuriat kan. Sekali dengan kuasa Tuhan, selepas saya melalui proses dengan proses hormon, sebab SLE ini kadang-kadang hormon kewantitaan kita tak balance. So selepas saya melalui fasa tu, akhirnya saya dapat hamil lah, dapat mengandung untuk anak sulung. Sekali lagi saya lalui satu lagi trauma apabila saya mengandung pada waktu tu 4 bulan. Selepas saya mengandung 4 bulan tu, sekali lagi saya terpaksa lalui dugaan bila doktor kata saya perlu gugurkan kandungan saya disebabkan dia akan efek kepada saya dan kandungan. Sebab pada waktu tu dia telah mengganggu sedikit sistem buah pinggang. Jadi pada masa tu saya pun tak tahu macam mana, mungkin kerana saya muda lagi, jadi saya beritahu doktor saya nak teruskan kandungan saya dan saya tak nak gugurkan kandungan saya pada waktu 4 bulan. Jadi pada saya, jadi doktor kata boleh, tapi dengan syarat sepanjang 9 bulan mengandung tu saya kena fokus pada kandungan saya je. Jadi saya terpaksa berhenti kerja, 2 minggu sekali saya akan dapatkan rawatan dengan pakar mengandung, dan 2 minggu sekali saya kena pergi kepada pakar buah pinggang. Dalam masa 9 bulan tu, itulah saya terpaksa lalui, melalui doktor pakar buah pinggang dan pakar mengandung untuk menyelamatkan kandungan di dalam kandungan saya lah, baby dalam kandungan saya tu. Akhirnya saya dapat lalui, saya pada waktu tu terpaksa makan prednisolon satu hari dalam 16 biji. 16 biji untuk memastikan baby dalam kandungan dan saya mendapat untuk darah yang mencukupi selama 9 bulan. Pada waktu tu muka saya memang lebih besar, 2 kali berganda, 3 kali ganda pada ni, dan muka saya penuh dengan jerawat. Dan memang kata orang muka tu dah macam monster pun ada. Jadi terpaksa juga carry on lah sampai 9 bulan. Akhirnya saya melahirkan anak sulung saya di Hospital Besar Kuala Lumpur dengan secara normal, bukan caesar. Jadi itulah pengalaman yang paling saya tak boleh lupa, macam mana saya melalui 9 bulan tu dengan makan SLE-nya, dengan makan prednisolon yang terlalu banyak, 16 biji. Ada 3 kes SLE pada waktu tu yang berjaya hamil. Tapi sedih untuk dinyatakan bahawa kami bertiga, yang pertama dia miscarriage, yang kedua dia bersalin tapi pada waktu tu dia pass away dengan baby. Jadi tinggal saya seorang lagi pada waktu tu melalui proses fasa-fasa tu, dan dengan izin Tuhan saya dapat melalui proses tu sehingga melahirkan anak saya sekarang ni. Anak saya dah berumur 28 tahun dan simptom-simptom SLE tu tidak ada pun pada dia. Jadi saya percaya bahawa SLE ni bukan sakit keturunan. Dia memang sakit yang kita dapat sendirilah, bukan keturunan. Sebab anak saya yang kedua pun SLE anak saya yang kedua pun selepas 3 tahun SLE saya tak aktif. Jadi saya minta kebenaran doktor untuk mengandung, dan alhamdulillah yang mengandung kali kedua ni agak mudah sikit sebab SLE saya tak aktif. Jadi dia pun sekarang dah berusia 26 tahun, dia pun tak ada simptom-simptom SLE. Mereka sihat alhamdulillah. Jadi saya nak yakinkan di sini bahawa pada saya, tak tahulah kalau doktor punya view kan, pada saya, anak saya yang saya lahirkan dengan makan penicillin 16 biji satu hari tu selama 9 bulan, setakat ni mereka belum ada simptom-simptom SLE lah. Alhamdulillah lah, tu pengalaman saya lah yang saya bawa. Jadi kalau adik-adik SLE kat luar sana yang nak meneruskan berumah tangga ke apa, itu bukan satu masalah. Yang penting beritahu pada pasangan bahawa kita ada SLE. Sekiranya kita tak dapat nak menjelaskan dekat dia SLE tu lebih detail, mungkin kita boleh bawa dia macam saya buat, jumpa doktor kita, biar doktor kita yang terangkan risiko-risiko apa yang perlu mereka lalui bila mereka memperisterikan seorang SLE. Tu jelah sedikit pengalaman saya untuk kita kongsi bersama pada hari ini. Tadi yang adik tanya saya tentang buku Okey, buku tu sekarang ni masih dalam proses editing. InsyaAllah buku aku dan SLE tu kalau tak ada halangan mungkin pada awal bulan Mac nanti, bulan Mac 2022. InsyaAllah buku tu akan dapat dihasilkan lah.
Okay, thank you to Miss Nur Hussein. I want to ask Dr. Farouk, is there any other things that you want to share with us for today?
I think awareness is again is something which we talk about it, and that is something is again very very important. Another thing which I am interested in, actually we are trying to do with PM and Monash on another project, is actually involving religious groups actually to help us to actually increase that awareness. Because I think if you look at Asian countries where actually we are actually believer of one or other religion, and sometimes people sometimes get misinformation which is actually not coming from the right sources, even from within the religion, and people kind of misunderstand the condition. If I just say simple thing, for example, epilepsy has been misunderstood with some demonic possession or some jinn effect or something else, but that's a different separate thing. We are talking about a neurological condition which needs medical treatment. And I think our objective is not to demonize any of the religion, or disregard any of the religion, but we want the religious leader to help us in raising awareness, because people believe, they are very strong in their beliefs. Sometimes, one of our research says, people actually trust more to the religious leader compared to the medical health providers. So I think we don't want to say, no, this is good or this is bad. No, we are not into that business. We are trying to say, okay, you as a religious leader, we need your help. And I think if medical doctors and religious leaders, if they join hand, I think that definitely gonna help to improve the quality of life of the patient. And I'll give an example how we want to do it. I think when we talk about awareness, I think the biggest gathering we get is in the religious gatherings. Okay, and if they listen from the religious leader about the awareness part of a disease, I think that will be absolutely, amazing, and that will raise actually a lot of awareness and on a bigger platform. That's one. The second thing is, some people are so strong believer that they completely disregard, for example, the medical fraternity. But we want to approach to the religious leader and say, okay, if certain people or certain patient like that, if they comes to you, you say that, okay, we're gonna provide you whatever religious treatment you expecting from us, but at the same time, you also need to take this drug, or you have to take this medicine. I will do my stuff which I need to do on the religious rituals, but at the same time you also need to take medication, then only your condition will be treatable. So I think with this collaboration, role of religion coming into treating a lot of diseases, I think that definitely gonna help us with the awareness, and also will increase the compliance of the patient with the drug and treatment. Because if you look at the epilepsy, it's not something which is cannot be controlled. But the problem, if you look at the research within our region, especially in the developing country, and mainly in Asian region, I think, where the majority of the patient suffering from epilepsy stays, 70% of the patient do not receive proper treatment. Okay, that's the reason behind that is, again, stigma, lack of awareness, lack of support. And I think with this involving religion in that, we can achieve both awareness and the compliance part of the disease. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Dr. Faro. I agree with the collaboration with religious institution and the medical institution, because as myself, I was diagnosed with depression, highly severe depression, and when I got breakdowns, or I cannot go get up from bed, people around me, especially my parents who have a religious circle, they told my parents that I'm possessed by a demon or something, that I need to get help before the demon trying to kill myself, and so on. So it's very hard for me as a Nila, because like I need help from a professional, but they do not want me to go, because they said like, oh, the doctor's going to give you medication that's going to make you very macam apa tu, addicted to the medication until one day you'll die or something. It just hurts me because I suffers from it for like 5 years. And the last time I went to a religious person lah, this ustad told me that like you said, I can go to him to treat my depression. At the same time, I need to go to the hospital and treat my depression medically, using medication, because it's very important. And in Islam also taught that you have to ikhtiar, you have to do both, with a religious way and also the medical way, and also other religion as well. Like I have friends who also like from other religion who suffers the same thing as me, because of the religion and the misconception of mental illness and the apa invisible illness surrounding the people with in the religious institution. So next we can go to Dr. Ibtizam. Do you have any further talk about this issue?
Well, I suppose from me, as a take-home message for everyone, if you are not well, as in if you have some symptoms which are not getting better, do get help. I mean, you cannot be going one doctor and then give up on treatment, go for other alternative. Seek help, because for all you know, these things are treatable, and it's best to treat early. So my advice to everyone who actually has any abnormal symptoms and persistent despite any conventional treatment, get some help. You can go to normal doctor, you can go to hospital, you can ask around, and don't give up with doctors as well. They may not diagnose you in the first place because these things are invisible. There are many mimickers. Go until you get a proper diagnosis and a proper treatment. Okay, that's only one from me.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ibtizam. Miss Sophia, anything to talk about?
Yeah, my key take home message will be very importantly, first you must accept that what you have been diagnosed. Acceptance, self-acceptance is so important. And then the next thing is you have to start to look at yourself first before you actually try. Like people used to say, you have to love yourself first before you love others. You have to take care of yourself first before you take care of others. So when your well-being is good and in a good shape, then you will be able to do more for the community. Right. I also agree with Dr. Farouk's suggestion that religious leaders should be, collaborating with all these NGOs, and then because a lot of followers will be listening to their, to their saying and whatnot. Same goes to me. In my Baha'i religion, I don't have a leader, but we have a institution or administrative function over there. So a lot of times the Baha'is will come together, and then we read the writings, and then we try to go through a correct way by, especially by getting the assistance from the medical doctors and whatnot. Because at one point in my life, I was trying, my parents, because that time I was like 13 years old, 14 years old. My parents was like trying to find all the avenues we could just to treat me well, to the extent I went to the Bomo, I went to the Toksami, but ended up I don't get going anywhere. So you have to understand, and especially try to understand what is this condition or disease all about first. And if you know this is relatable to science, I mean, most of our diseases are related to science, nothing else. And I always believe science and religion must go hand in hand at the same time. Yeah. So get the diagnosis right, and then start getting your treatment. Like Dr. Ibtisam said, that everything there will be a source of a healing, or there's a medication. Like some diseases are treatable, some diseases are manageable. It depends how are you actually seeing and taking a proper steps to get to that journey lah. That's from me. And at the same time, when it comes to the mental health issues, most importantly, there are a few things like speak to your friend, go and get some guidance and assistance from the doctors outside. So these are the main thing that you have to do before it's too late. Yeah, this is my key takeaway messages to all the friends. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we have a question. Ada yang tanya, macam mana kita nak tahu SLE kita ni aktif ataupun tak aktif? Pada doktor ataupun dekat Puan Nur, Puan Nur Husin, ataupun doktor pun boleh.
Bisa doktor lah lebih bagus untuk
Okay. I presume this is already diagnosed lupus lah. Okay, so then asking about whether the lupus is active or not active. Well, we need to get a professional input. You need to see a rheumatologist, need to be examined, looking for any active symptoms or signs. And we have to do or run investigation, blood investigation, because that will determine how active you are and what form of treatment do you require. Because usually when I treat lupus, we normally would see where in the spectrum or where in the line the lupus activity is. Is it just mild lupus, or is it moderate lupus, or is it severe lupus? And as I said, if you have a symptom that you cannot explain or not improving with conventional treatment, do get help, because sometimes we cannot tell from outside whether your lupus is active or not. As simple as fever. If you have fever for more than 2 weeks, you've been taking medication, antibiotics, paracetamol, and the fever is still ongoing, it could well be a lupus being active. So when you have symptoms, go to see your doctor, and they will actually assess clinically and do or run investigations on you.
Okay, thank you, doctor. We have a lot of questions coming. The first question is, Why is there still a stigma surrounding invisible illness? Is it because it is not seen, or people may think that you are faking it? So anyone can answer?
Yeah, I think because we as a society we haven't done a lot of work in order to understand it. For example, the question came about whether we can use certain coded lanyards to identify their diseases. I mean, if we have, I mean, this is very much working in some of the developed countries because there is already a lot of what you call work done on the awareness, and people are aware of those things, and if anyone has any trouble on that, people can identify. For example, in epilepsy they use a purple band in UK and other places, and if somebody has epilepsy attack, so people just see the band and then they identify this person is suffering from epilepsy and they go on helping them. But I think in our society that work has not been done. I mean, just let you know, like the previous term which was used for epilepsy in Bahasa was something which itself is a discriminatory word, like which actually means a very very bad meaning. So I think right from the as we evolve and as we grow and understand more, I think then we'll be able to overcome those issues, and surely I think in the future people will, when we create enough awareness, then it will be easy for people to disclose their invisible illness, and at the same time we as a society will be able to accept that and create an environment which is kind of supportive, and which is conducive for them to openly disclose their invisible illnesses as well. I hope I answered that question.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Have you found it difficult to express what you go through to others since you look okay outwardly? Maybe this question for Miss Sophia or Miss Nur Hussein.
Okay, betul, sebagai pesakit SLE ni ada yang kelihatan dari segi fizikal. Contoh kalau dia attack dari segi kulit, kita akan nampak luaran kulit kita, contoh butterfly rash. Ada yang kulit dia kata seperti mengelupas, kepanasan. Itu yang dari segi fizikal luaran. Kalau penyakit SLE dia attack yang bahagian luaran, memang akan diketahui lah yang kita sakit. Tapi sekiranya SLE itu attack organ dalaman, contoh buah pinggang, sistem-sistem saraf, penglihatan, sel-sel darah, benda-benda ni tidak dapat dilihat oleh mata kasar. Jadi itu sebab kebanyakan pesakit SLE ada yang merungut, mereka mengatakan bahawa masyarakat sekeliling tak tahu bahawa mereka tu sakit. Ada yang kata mereka saja-saja buat sakit, malas nak bekerja, semalam okey, hari ni dah tak okey, semalam boleh pergi bercuti dengan family, tiba-tiba 2 hari kemudian tak larat nak buat ini, tak larat nak buat itu. Sebenarnya itu apabila mereka SLE yang dalaman. Yang dalaman ni memang tak nampak. Macam contoh saya lah, macam saya sekarang. Kalau pandang dari segi luaran, tak ada siapa pun tahu yang sekarang ni saya dalam keadaan kekurangan darah. Darah merah saya below normal, darah putih saya below normal. So bagaimana saya nak tunjukkan kepada orang sekeliling saya yang sekarang ni saya kurang sihat. SLE saya sekarang mungkin separuh aktif. Sebab tu darah saya turun mendadak dan saya terpaksa ambil ubat untuk menyihatkan tubuh saya, dan kadang-kadang tiba-tiba saya akan rasa lemah. Bila saya rasa lemah tu maknanya mungkin hemoglobin dalam badan saya tu tak stabil. Jadi saya perlu rehat, saya perlu baring. Tapi apabila hemoglobin tu dah agak-agak stabil, kemudian saya akan jadi aktif balik. Saya akan segar balik, saya akan sihat balik. Jadi sakit yang unknown ni sebenarnya hanya kita, orang yang terdekat dengan kita je yang benar-benar tahu kita ni, keadaan kita macam mana. Tetapi pandangan orang yang jauh yang tak terlalu rapat dengan kita, mereka rasa macam kita ni sakit main-main. Sakit main-main macam kata sakit tapi okey je nampak kan, boleh jogging, kata sakit okey je, boleh pergi jalan-jalan cuti yang family, tapi sebenarnya di luaran tu kita nampak sihat, tapi sebenarnya kita sakit di dalaman tu. Dan orang yang benar-benar faham sakit kita adalah doktor yang merawat kita dan kita serta orang yang hampir dengan kita. Itulah yang saya rasa yang dimaksudkan bahawa sakit tu tak nampak. Yang mana nampak kalau fizikal. Kalau contoh ada yang sakit, dia tak boleh nak bangun sebab attack dia punya sistem saraf. Ada sahabat SAE saya, dia tak boleh bangun, dia terpaksa duduk di wheelchair, dia nak angkat kaki tak boleh, nak angkat tangan tak boleh. Mungkin nampak sakit SLE dia tu sekarang tengah aktif, tengah mengganggu dia. Tapi ada yang sakit buah pinggang contoh, memang betul dia baring, tapi dia masih boleh bergerak seperti orang lain, kecuali apabila dia pula kena dialisis. Apabila dia kena dialisis baru orang akan nampak, oh dia tu sakit buah pinggang. Tapi sebenarnya sebelum ni pun dia memang ada sakit tu, tapi dia tak dialisis. Jadi dia boleh aktif macam orang lain tapi mengikut kemampuan dia lah. Itu yang dimaksudkan pada saya sakit yang orang tak nampak. Dari segi SLE itulah yang orang tengok hari ni nampak dia macam okey tapi sebenarnya dia tak okey. Macam tu lah. Itu pandangan peribadi saya lah.
Miss Sophia, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, because psoriasis condition is very apparent, you know. At one look, you know already you have some skin condition, but at the same time, it's just not only a skin dip. It's more than that. It's more than the surface. So by one look, people will know that she has got a problem, you know. But if you look at myself, I look normal right now because I'm on biologics for the last 1 month. So because my condition was quite worse for the last 1 year. And, you know, doctor said that, okay, the last, you know, option I have is actually biologics. And it took some time for me to even think about it because I wouldn't want to, you know, put in so much of medication on me because I tried steroids, prednisolone, I tried MTX, everything, cyclosporin, semua I cuba, nothing happened. At one point, I was controlling the whole thing for the last, for approximately 4 years. So, then now I'm looking good, but it's just that my joints are still, you know, not so good. It has deformed. I got spinal issue. I got fibromyalgia syndrome as well. I have my neck movement. So banyak sangat lah this issue that at one look, you know, already she got some condition. So probably, you know, for those who have couldn't see anything externally, but those who are having suffering inside, that is the most difficult part to actually explain their condition. Because it's invisible. People won't know until you tell someone, kan? So yeah, slightly different.
Okay, thank you, Miss Sophia and Miss Nur Hussein. Next question we have for Miss Sophia again. As someone who works in human resource, do you think a person should declare their invisible illness or will it hurt them? Because like I've heard someone told me not to tell if I graduate and then I got a job, don't tell them that I'm taking medication, this kind of medication, because like this medication can like, you know, makes you nikah ke, so they don't let you work. So what do you think?
I think truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtue lah. Because when you're being honest about what you are going through, then the management will be able to understand your situation. And of course, no management want to hire anybody who is very sickly and cannot perform, because end of the day, we're looking at the productivity and also ROI and whatnot. But at the same time, the management also will try to understand what kind of condition that a person is going through, so that there can be a help and also a guide, or even you know, supporting in some ways actually. You know, if let's say we see that we cannot hire anybody sickly, then 60% of the population in the organization, they might be having a diabetic or, you know, asthma or anything else. Then you cannot hire anybody in this world. You know, if you're looking for a very perfectionist, a perfect you know, human being, there's none, obviously, right? So it's best for you to declare, be honest about what you're going through, so that it won't make some of them, it won't actually influence their decision making. If let's say you have all the knowledge, skills and ability that you can perform a job, by not looking only on your health part, then the decision making will become a better decision, because at the same time you're being honest as well, kan? So if you have these KSA 3 things in you, you can perform the role, why not? So best for you to declare, and then try to be open with them, because we always practice being openness kan about things, especially when it comes to career life. And then I think you should declare. That's my point of view. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Sophia. Next question for Dr. Ibtizam. Lupus occurs often, frequently in women. Why do you think it is happening?
Well, it goes unexplained as to why more common in women. But if you have a ratio of 10, 9 is female, 1 is male. So, yeah. I mean, there have been efforts trying to explain about genetic, sexual, or whatever thing, but there's nothing specific as to why this is more common in ladies or women. So we have to anticipate more in women to suffer from SLE. But if you have got male lupus, they can be very severe, difficult to treat.
Thank you. There's a 3 question, almost the same. What advice will you give to the patient who did not get support from their close friends or family? Maybe Puanur Husin, can you answer that?
Okay, bagi saya sebenarnya orang yang paling penting untuk support adalah family kita, adik-beradik kita, saudara mara dan sahabat kita. Sebab SLE ini dia perlukan support luaran juga. Di samping sebab SLE ini kalau dia tak dapat support di sekeliling orang dia akan lagi down. Dan apabila dia down, dia susah untuk bangkit untuk melawat SLE dia. Contoh macam saya, sepanjang 20 tahun saya bekerja di Tenaga Nasional, saya bahagian human resource dan semua ketua-ketua jabatan saya daripada perusahaan tertinggi sehinggalah sahabat handai saya di tim saya bekerja tu semua tahu saya SLE dan mereka memang bagi saya support. Contoh kalau dari segi kerja-kerja, macam ketua-ketua saya dah tahu, okey saya lemah dari sudut mana yang saya tak boleh buat. Macam contoh kalau ada event tu saya diberi event yang dalam kalau ada majlis lah contoh. Macam saya memang dah diberi tugas, saya bukan kerja yang di luar daripada majlis, macam contoh yang kena panas-panas ke apa semua tu saya dikecualikan. Itu yang pentingnya apabila kita kerja, kita kena beritahu paling kurang ketua jabatan kita lah apa sakit kita. Sebab sekiranya kita tak bagi tahu sakit kita, nanti tugas-tugasan yang diberi tu mungkin bercanggah dengan kesihatan kita. Jadi dia akan lebih memudaratkan kita punya kesihatan. Apabila terjadi macam tu, performance kita, kerja kita pun dah terganggu. Hanya kerana kita sakit selepas sesuatu program atau majlis. Kedua, saudara mara tu mungkin agak jauh sikit dengan kita, tapi yang paling dekat dengan kita adalah ibu, ayah, adik-beradik. Itu yang paling hampir dalam kehidupan kita, anak, suami, isteri. So mereka ni adalah orang yang pada saya tunggak utama lah untuk memberi support yang terlalu kuat untuk sakit-sakit. Tak kira lah SLE ke atau apa sakit sekalipun, pada saya mereka adalah orang terdekat yang perlu memahami bahawa ada anggota keluarga mereka yang memerlukan support, positif support untuk mereka bangkit dan terus sihat. Sebab pada saya sekiranya emosi kita tak dikawal, tak stabil, saya penuh yakin kita tak akan dapat mengawal diri kita dan mengawal sakit kita. Sebab sebagai pesakit, dalaman kita untuk berjuang seorang kita tak kuat. Kita perlukan support orang sekeliling kita. Dengan adanya support mereka itulah kita akan berusaha untuk terus sihat. Jadi kalau orang sekeliling kita yang paling dekat dengan kita pun tidak atau mengabaikan kita dan kita rasa kita tak diperlukan, kita tak disayangi, jadi bila kita ada perasaan macam tu, kita akan down. Jadi kita pandang ubat pun dah tak bermaya nak makan. Apa yang kita buat semua kita dah rasa macam tak bersemangat. Sebab pengalaman saya SLE paling bahaya kalau kita ada situasi macam tu. Sebab ada masa saya sendiri pun adalah di perasaan-perasaan macam tu. Bila kadang-kadang saya tengok ubat pun tak naklah makan. Sedangkan kita tahu ubat tu bukanlah apa kata orang penyembuh nombor satu, tetapi ia adalah usaha kita untuk sihat. Sebagai orang Islam, saya rasa kita boleh selitkan sikit dengan doa-doa yang kita tahu untuk menguatkan lagi kita punya spiritual kita lah. Dan saya sokong tadi yang mengatakan bahawa penceramah-penceramah atau agamawan ni jika mereka diberi peluang untuk memberi nasihat, kebanyakannya memang betul macam kata Sofia tadi, follower ni dia lebih percaya kepada nasihat-nasihat sebegitu kan. Jadi saya cadangkan kalau ada yang mendengar ni, kaum keluarga mereka ada yang sakit, tak kira lah sakit apa sekalipun, please bagilah mereka support, bagi mereka semangat dan jangan mengeluh sekiranya mereka berada dalam keadaan yang sakit. Cuba bagi mereka semangat untuk mereka bangun dan mereka sihat kembali. Itu je lah.
Thank you, Ms. Nur Hussein. Ms. Sophia, do you want to add anything?
I think Puan Nur have actually said it very nicely. She has put it very nicely. And in fact, Dr. Farouk actually mentioned about going through the religious leaders to actually collaboration and so on. Yeah, that was his idea. But I agreeing to him actually because I did the same with the Baha'i community in my area. So a lot of things has been happening also within the community.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sophia. So another question for Dr. Farouk and maybe Dr. Tizam also. Do you believe some aspect of modern life, for example, social media and technology is leading to more cases of autoimmune disease?
I think Dr. Ibtizam can go first.
Well, social media and technology leading to more cases of autoimmune disease, I would disagree. It is not related to this science and technology, but I suppose it's actually a media that transmit the information that makes people realize about what these diseases are. I don't think it's leading to. What about you, Dr. Farouk?
Now, I think I think there are two things can be taken from this. One is one is the source of information. If we talk about when social media and all this stuff, I think I will not hesitate to say because of the social media there are a lot of misinformation is also been spread so fastly without verifying, and I will say that is another source of creating stigma and a lot of discrimination and hate, in different aspects, not only diseases but all the other aspects as well. So that is where I think it is a hidden disease as well. The another part could be the technology itself. We are talking about the rays and whatever 5G rays and other stuff, whether these stuff do cause any of the serious diseases, including autoimmune disease. I think still there is no concrete research and there is no concrete evidence as such, like if these rays are so harmful that it will, I know there are certain YouTube videos which shows they keep a egg in between the two cell phones and then the eggs start boiling and all those things, but I think that's not really the case. I think any gadgets come in, it go through a lot of investigation and quality check before it is meant for human use. So I think all those are people just create to earn more likes and more subscribers on their channels, but there's not much more truth in that. Yeah.
If I can add up, Shafika, I definitely agreeable to Dr. Ibtisam and also Dr. Farouk. It is not actually creating or even creating more autoimmune disease problem, but it's actually leading to some other issues. For example, when everybody in this world are only portraying the perfect side of their story every day, what it says tells you. For example, I see someone who's having a very happy and a joyful life, but I don't have it. What will happen to me? Then I will have low self-esteem. I have low self-confidence, and then I feel like my life is much more least fortunate than others. So these kind of things will lead to more mental health issues. You see, so it doesn't create more disease, but maybe it will lead more to it goes towards the anxiety issue or maybe depression by looking more things coming up which is not true. Try putting in all the flip side of your side, the negative or the disadvantage part of your side in the social media and see, then you will know that is the real life actually. So yeah, it will lead to something else, but not this kind of autoimmune disease. That is my point of view. Thank you.
So we
Yeah,
all
but at
agree
this,
that
sorry, just add to one more point. I think at the same time, if we just use it rightly, like how a lot of organization, with even Sophie and Noor and Dr. Ibtisam for and PEM also using social media to create awareness, among different about different diseases, and I think that that's give a lot of good platform where we try to share information. And I think again, if it is coming from the correct organization and correct knowledgeable people about that disease, otherwise there are a lot of misinformation is actually exists, a lot of misinformation, false what you call hopes for the treatments of treating almost every disease on the earth, with using one herb or one drink and all those things. I think some people get into that trap as well. We are not denying like the traditional or herbal medicines are of no use at all. Definitely, there are some which have potential, but at this point of time, we look into more scientific evidence which support the effectiveness, and we don't just blindly use at this point of time, at least. So I think we use that for creating or use a positive part of the social media and technology.
So I think we all can agree that modern life, like social media and technology, doesn't. It's not giving the leading cause of autoimmune disease. It's not a cause, but it's a cause for other things such as like misinformation and other things as well. So next question we have for Dr. Ibtizam. I have lupus and I get fatigued extremely easily. I am scared people think it's an excuse. How can I convey people how I feel? So how can you talk to people?
Okay, fatigue is very common in lupus and it's very subjective. There's no way we can measure fatigue. It's very individual. So what we do, you need to see a doctor, acknowledge to them what you are suffering from or what problem you are having, whether it's part of the disease activity or it's part of the burden more than the activity, if you know what I mean. It's not that you need to increase your medicine, but you probably need to handle it properly. The doctor can actually write a letter to the employer as to what is the problem now and what are we doing and what are we expecting. So I think that will be more strong to actually tell. I mean, you have to tell your supervisor, like, I suppose the one above you, as to what are the problem. The other people, you just have to talk to them if they ask, or maybe how do I say? It's not easy actually, especially with people who do not ask, but then just put you aside rather than asking why are you behaving like this, why are you not feeling right, or why are you not be able to produce whatever is being asked. So I think from your point, you just need to ask the doctor some proof or evidence and also some help to fight this fatigue. We cannot be living with fatigue forever because then the problem is not going to be solved. So there are ways, then maybe medication, maybe physical activity that can be advised. Along with that, some letter of acknowledgement from the doctor, And usually, if I were to write this kind of letter, I would kind of give a time frame, because this shouldn't be lifelong. This should just be temporary. If you're suffering from fatigue, maybe give it like 3 months, and then things will get better as we work on it. So at least that give the employers some reassurance, or people some reassurance. Are you talking about workplace or just people around you? People around you, you have to talk to them lah, basically.
Yeah.
If workplace, you can get some proper documentation. If people around you, you have to just explain to them.
Yeah. Agree.
So, Ms. Nur Hussein, do you have anything to add?
Okay, saya agree dengan Dr. Itizen punya cadangan, dan apa yang doktor cadangkan memang telah pun saya lakukan semasa saya berkhidmat di syarikat saya, di mana doktor yang merawat saya telah membuat sekeping surat lah, acknowledgement tentang sakit-sakit saya, apa yang saya tak boleh dan apa yang saya boleh, dan surat itu telah saya majukan kepada ketua jabatan saya, dan berpandu kepada surat itulah job description saya. Mereka buat job description saya bergantung kepada surat doktor lah, maknanya orang yang mengarahkan tu adalah doktor yang merawat kita sendiri. Jadi dia sendiri tahu kesan positif dan negatif akibat tugas-tugas yang dibebankan kepada seorang pekerja tu. Jadi macam doktor katalah, kalau majikan kita bagikan surat, proper surat, tapi sekiranya orang sekeliling yang tidak memahami tu, kita kena jelaskan kepada mereka dengan cara yang baiklah. Sakit kita ni macam ni, sebenarnya kita tak boleh buat ini, tak boleh buat itu, kita kena terangkan. Cuma kalau untuk majikan tu saya setuju, kita minta doktor kita buatkan surat dan majukan kepada mereka. InsyaAllah majikan kita sekarang adalah kebanyakannya semua majikan yang prihatin, dan mereka pun akan memahami situasi setiap pekerja mereka.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hussein. So another question, how can an autoimmune illness affect relationship with others? Maybe Ms. Sophia and Ms. Nur Hussein can answer this question.
Ms.
Yeah.
Sophia.
Okay, thank you. So, how it affects the relationship? It depends on the individual. For example, like for me at the beginning stage, I love to be isolated. I don't like to attend any social events. I don't like to mingle with anybody. That means I am sitting in my own shell and I don't want to go out. And then at that one point that my family encourages me to actually showcase myself, because except for the fact that this is how I was created, and like I mentioned just now, self-acceptance is so important. The moment you start accepting yourself, then only you see other people will start accepting you. So to avoid to have a good relationship, to avoid from having a bad relationship, or just to fix that to become a good relationship, sometimes you have to be very transparent and educate them. Again, educate and also creating awareness is so important, that then only people will start understand what are you going through, but when we can actually be open and tell them what are we going through, but end of the day it's their choice whether they wanted to accept, or they just wanted to shy away from you. So that is very, if let's say a true friendship is built, then the person will be there by your side lah. That's what I believe. But how to fix a relationship, husband and wife, I think Puan Noh can actually answer to that question, because I'm not in that kind of relationship yet. So wrong person to ask the question. So over to you, Puan Noh.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Sophia. Okay, first saya cerita tentang relationship kita amongst our people around us. Macam contoh, macam saya since 2 years, saya dah tak ada parents. I don't have mothers, fathers already, pass away. So yang besarkan saya is my sister. So sampai satu masa I be alone. Bila I dah 21st years old, I dah mula bekerja, I be alone. My relatives semua dah ada tugasan mereka dengan family mereka sendiri. So dari situ orang yang paling memberi saya sokongan dan orang yang paling rapat sekeliling saya adalah sahabat-sahabat saya, kawan-kawan saya. Dan dari segi transparent tu saya memang tak pernah rahsiakan sakit saya. Saya sentiasa beritahu mereka yang saya SLE dan sakit saya begini. Jadi apabila mereka memahami situasi saya, jadi mereka banyak membantu, memberi semangat, memberi dorongan. Okey, dari sudut relationship dengan family, especially marriage, okey, terus terang bagi tahu saya berkahwin selama 7 tahun. 7 tahun saya hidup dalam family dan saya punya ex-husband dia memang memahami saya lah sebagai pesakit SLE dan dia banyak memberi saya sokongan dan bantuan lah jika saya perlukan apa-apa. Sebab macam saya cerita tadi, sebelum kahwin saya dah bawa dia jumpa doktor pakar saya. So doktor pun dah explain dekat dia SLE is apa. If you ada isteri seorang SLE, apa yang you perlu buat, apa support yang perlu you beri. Tapi disebabkan mungkin semua orang nakkan jodoh yang panjang, tapi jodoh saya tak panjang kan. Jadi sepanjang saya ada relationship dengan husband, dia adalah seorang yang memahami kita lah sebagai SLE. Itu yang saya bagi tahu tadi. Sekiranya nak cari suami bagi yang belum berumah tangga, make sure you punya bakal suami tu tahu you ada SLE, tahu apa SLE dan tahu apa buruk baiknya kita sebagai pesakit SLE. Jadi jangan nanti apabila dah berumah tangga, dia mula question kita, kenapa you tak boleh buat ni, kenapa orang boleh buat, kenapa you tak boleh buat this, orang lain boleh buat. So bila dia dah memahami you as a SLE patient, dia dah accept you dan dia terima you as a wife, dia akan sentiasa support you. So itu yang saya beritahu, sebagai SLE kita kena kuat semangat. Sebab untuk membesarkan 2 anak yang masih kecil pada waktu tu, dan pada waktu tu pula SLE saya aktif. SLE saya aktif dan pada waktu tu saya dah be a single mother. Jadi apabila saya warded, sahabat-sahabat saya yang di sekeliling saya, saudara adik-beradik saya dan saudara mara yang terdekat, mereka lah yang ambil tanggungjawab untuk take care saya punya anak-anak pada waktu tu. Jadi apabila kita berada di ward, terus terang saya cakap, bukan saya, semua orang pun apabila you berada di ward, badan kita tu di hospital tetapi mind kita, minda kita akan teringat kepada keluarga kita, anak kita balik sekolah macam mana, siapa ambil makan ke tidak kan, macam mana kerja sekolah, semua benda tu akan mengganggu kita untuk pulih lebih cepat apabila kita berada di ward. Jadi dengan adanya sokongan orang-orang sekeliling kita yang membantu kita, jadi apabila kita berada di ward, saya apabila berada di ward, bohonglah kalau saya tak ingat pasal siapa urus anak saya semua, tetapi saya lebih fokuskan kepada nak cepat sihat. Saya nak cepat sembuh supaya saya cepat boleh keluar dari hospital dan boleh menjalani hidup seperti orang-orang lain. Kerana orang-orang di sekeliling kita, saya selalu tekan kepada SLE fighter, grup page saya, kita jangan lemah semangat, kita kena ingat pada insan-insan sayang yang berada di sekitar kita. Saya selalu pesan kepada mereka, we stay together, I can, you can, we all can. We can stay together as long as we can stay together as long kita ni bersatulah. Dalam SLE fighter ni, kita dalam grup ni, kita adalah sahabat yang sentiasa membantu satu sama lain. Contoh baru ni saya tengok dalam page saya, ada seorang tu dia berada di Kajang, dia kehabisan ubat, stok habis. So dia tanya dalam grup saya, dia kata, siapa ada obat penicillin, dia kata, sebab dia kehabisan pada waktu tu. Dan saya tengok ramai yang offer nak suruh dia datang di sekitar yang berhadapan dengan dia tu untuk ambil ubat, free saja. Jadi dari situ saya nampak kita macam satu family yang besar. Walaupun mereka tak kenal adik yang tadi kehabisan wad di Kajang tu, tetapi ramai sahabat-sahabat SLE dan di sekitar kawasan tu offer untuk dia datang ambil ubat, ubat apa, penicillin yang dia kehabisan tu. Itu yang saya kata support ni dia bukan saja dari segi family, dari segi orang terdekat, dalam grup kita sendiri pun lebih kuat. Kekuatan tu ada di mana-mana sekiranya kita bersatu dalam apa jua situasi lah, tak kira kita sakit ke apa, tapi yang penting bila kita meringankan beban orang yang lain, nanti bila kita pula ada masalah, orang pula akan merenangkan beban kita kan. Tu yang saya dapat share, bahawa kita ni macam satu family lah sebenarnya. Jadi kita sentiasa letak diri kita tu bukan simpati, tapi kita empati. Kita letak diri kita berada di dalam situasi seseorang tu. InsyaAllah jika kita sentiasa ada sikap tu, kita tidak akan pandang rendah pada sesiapa lah. Macam contoh tadi, orang sekeliling tak faham, dia sakit, tuduh dia macam ni macam tu kan. Jadi bila kita letak empati tu di dalam diri kita, kita tak akan bersangka buruk pada sesiapa pun, insyaAllah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Nur Hussein. We have another question. How do you think COVID or lockdown has affected the people with autoimmune disease? Maybe this question for Dr. Etiza.
What we are seeing is that these patients do not come for treatment. They defaulted, which is like causing their disease to become more active. And when they come back to us, we have to kind of start from the beginning, give them higher dose of immunosuppressants to treat the activity. So I think now that we are seeing they started to come back and get a proper treatment. So I think if you, in summary, this COVID lockdown make people non-compliant, which not good to see now. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Next question is for maybe for everyone. What initiative have the speakers representative organization done in order to raise awareness and educate the public? Maybe we can start with Dr. Farouk with Epilepsy Malaysia. Persatuan Epilepsy Malaysia.
Yeah, thanks, Shafiqa. I think Persatuan Epilepsy Malaysia being very active and being in business for so many years, I think we actually kind of doing all sort of awareness program which are possible to reach as many people as we can. Right from regular school awareness programs, which is done with the neurologists in the country, renowned neurologists in the country, along with them. Being PEM being a very unique society, we have the neurologist or epileptologist, we have scientists, we have caregivers, as well as patient themselves. So that make a very unique society where all of them are together to actually work upon them. So as I mentioned, school awareness program is one. Then we have a university talks, at that level to cover university talks about epilepsy awareness. Then we do a regular, in fact, monthly support group meetings for epilepsy and caregivers. That's another program where we also allow general public to come in and ask various questions, left, right, and center, and then we try to create more awareness using that. We do a lot of free webinars for anyone to join, again for the awareness. And lastly, we run every time when there is an international epilepsy day and epilepsy week, we try to run a week long epilepsy awareness week in Malaysia, actually to raise awareness. So it could be like different hospitals, different location, where for the whole week our volunteers will be there, and anyone who is passing by to that particular hospital, we try to communicate what epilepsy is, pass on the flyers, pass on the pamphlets we have. And this is another way actually we are trying to create awareness. The future plans is actually, as I mentioned, to talk about the developing some curriculum at school level, and awarding students with certificates, and giving them some first aid trainings and all. These again are part of the PM's future programs. The other things we are also thinking about, do some road shows and plays to create an awareness, because those kind of things give a message at a very faster pace and people get attracted to that. So I think those are the future plans from PM. But so far, I think whatever PM has done, we are very proud of it, and definitely we will continue doing that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Farouk. Next we have Persatuan apa tu?
So Psoriasis Association of Malaysia,
Ah,
PAM.
yeah.
Okay,
This is
so yeah, thank you, Shafika. So basically, the association has been very active because when we established this year 1985. For the last couple of years, we work very closely with the pharma companies because they have the budget to do the shows and campaigns and whatnot. Because being an NGO, we don't have much fund. We don't get any donations from the people or even from any other NGOs association. But generally, we get this kind of fund from those we are collaborating with, lah, especially like I wouldn't want to mention the names, but probably if you Google up, you know already. Then campaigns. The first campaign was the many campaigns. One of the most, the happening campaign. I would say that we worked together with singer ZRE, if you know who is she. We have actually created awareness through ZRE, and we have bagged, an award actually for this particular campaign, whereby we sing song. She composed a song and she wrote the lyrics, and then we sang together, and then we did a photo shoot, and then we did a stage show kind of thing. Yeah, but all is actually pre-recorded at that point in time. And then because celebrity also can be very they are very influential people. For example, if you see in overseas, like Leonardo DiCaprio, he has got OCD issues, and then Demi Lovato, so she has got bipolar disorder and everything. So they use their influencing factors to actually create the awareness. And that's what exactly we're trying to do, to get hold of all these celebrities to see whether they can help to create awareness, because they have thousands and millions of followers. They can create and also uh, share the messages so easily compared to the ordinary people who doesn't have that much of a followers as well. And besides that, we also work very closely with Ministry of Health, especially Hospital Besar Kuala Lumpur, and alongside a lot of campaigns. And we have medical advisor also from GH itself. We do a lot of campaigns. We try to collaborate with them, and then they also help us to actually tell their patients that PAM is exists, and then go to them for counseling. If you want to speak to someone, go to PAM, and those kind of activities. And on top of that, this year, particularly in month of April, three NGOs came together to create a coalition. So that is Psoriasis Malaysia of Malaysia from Central, we. Number two, Psoriasis Association of Johor, and also Psoriasis Association of the Penang as well. And also we have PAM, and then Arthritis Foundation of Malaysia. So these three NGOs came together to create a coalition because we want all the patients to have a good quality of life. Therefore, we are coming up with a lot of initiatives. And the first few initiatives was during this pandemic. We did a number of webinar, and we asked all the patients and viewers to join us. And we have engaged with quite a number of doctors as well, from north, south, and also from central region, and to speak about all this problem, pandemic, and everything is integrated to the talk. So these are the ongoing initiatives that we are taking. And since now the gate is open, now we can actually slowly start with this all face-to-face activities. Probably next year onwards we will do more engaging campaigns as well lah. So these are the few activities that is ongoing, but we don't put a stop by saying that, oh, it's a pandemic, we cannot go out. But now social media and all this virtual platform is already created. We have actually advanced a little bit into technology right now. By having this platform, we cannot give excuses that we cannot reach out to patients. Now the opportunity is even greater than before, because one button you get connected to all the people. Yeah. That's from Pam side lah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Sophia. Lastly, we have Persatuan SLE Malaysia.
Okay, Persatuan SLE Malaysia is actually open for patients and also public. For patients, we have various activities really, ranging from support groups, talks, face-to-face, a lot of awareness campaign and whatnot. I think similar to PAM as well, we're doing webinars, we're doing virtual Facebook Live, we have counseling sessions. All these are for patients and also public. We have like different territories, Persatuan SLE, East Coast, Southern, Northern, and also Sabah, Sarawak. So we are collaborating with everyone. HQ is in PJ. We have one annual event, which is Walk with a Payung, where we do encourage patients and also family members to come together and walk as part of recreational activity, exercise, and that also at the same time we do some small health talk. I think we need to do more, obviously, now that we can have face-to-face events. So I hope in future we can get more, we can do more campaigns for public. We used to collaborate with MOH doing talks at the hospitals. I think one that I am interested in, like Dr. Farooq mentioned, is about reaching through the religious association. I think that is very interesting suggestion that we all could actually reach out to. And yeah, it's about the same as others as well.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Ibtizam. Okay, so right now it's 2 p.m. and we have to wrap up our session. I would like to thank Dr. Farooq, Dr. Ibtizam, Miss Sophia, and Miss Nur Hussein for joining our talk today. And also thank you for our listeners for tuning in to our talk. No holdback for our virtual health event, no holdback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much,
Thank you.
Shafika. Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Farooq. Thank you, Dr. Tizam,
Thank
for
you. Thank
Noor.
you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you again.
Bye.
Okay. Wow, that was such an amazing discussion. Um, speakers for that amazing discussion on invisible illnesses. I really love how each and every organization is putting their best foot forward in increasing awareness and educating the public about invisible illnesses such as epilepsy, lupus, and psoriasis. Uh, well, that was really great. In the meantime, we're going to take a 1 hour break, so please feel free to walk around and freshen up. We will reconvene at 5 p.m. But before you go anywhere, we're going to have another round of our very famous lucky draw. So, okay, again, let me get the names in to the generator. Right, they are in. Okay, let's go. Okay, let me see. All right, it's loading. It's loading. All right, it's almost there. Okay. We have another set of lucky draw winners for today. Wow. Okay, this is really great. So yeah, later we'll be posting these names on Charisma Movement's Instagram stories. So be sure to follow us to keep an eye out on our stories. And yeah, to the two lucky winners, each of you will be walking home with a 50 ringgit Shopee voucher. Wow, that's really amazing. And yeah, we'll see you back at 5 p.m. for our discussion on sexual and women's health. Thank you.